Hello and welcome to another edition of the Daily Blender, and maybe another edition of the Daily Blender that sounds a whole lot like Beat the Book. I can't imagine why. I can't think of any reasons why you would think that these two shows today, and maybe even Thursday, and maybe even Friday, are similar. Like I couldn't possibly imagine. I'm Keon Rose, and alongside me is the betting expert in the building, Dylan Cohen. And this is, in fact, the Daily Blender, broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios. You know where you are. You're on the text line at 888-368-1580. Thank you. Thanks for joining the show. We got a text from Golden Domer, who we tried to reach out to in the last hour on Beat the Book, the last show that, again, is going to sound weirdly familiar to this show. And I, again, cannot think of any reasons why. Golden Domer, you did win. You did win the Cardinals win probability contest. And if you want to know what that's all about as a person listening to the Blender, maybe tune into this radio station at 2 p.m. Maybe do that. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got Monday Night Football coming up. It's Packers and Saints. We promised you there would be football. We didn't promise you that the football would be good. We also have a lot to get to as far as the Cardinals. We have some Sun Devils to talk. We're going to get to a little bit of Phoenix Suns. In fact, we're going to talk some NBA today, just as a matter of fact, because there's a lot of NBA games going on today. The slate is pretty full, and then they're going to take a day off before Christmas, and then Christmas Day is going to be all of the holiday basketball that you can handle. I'm looking forward to it. I know Dylan's looking forward to it as well. But before we get things really started on the text line, I want to put something out there for hour number one today, because it's the end of the year. I don't know if this is something that happens at your place of employment, your job. The performance reviews, they roll in. And I want to know what you, the fourth dimension, think of your coaches. Whatever team you happen to root for in the NFL, it's time for the coaching performance review. How do you feel about the year that you're having? If you're a Niners fan, I have some guesses. If you're a Cowboys fan, maybe I have some guesses. I don't know if I need a performance review from you if you're a Jets fan, just because I feel like your coach already failed his performance review about week 5.
Well, the owner's teenage sons run the franchise anyway.
The two kids that use Madden ratings, and then their
Do
dad.
coaches get Madden ratings of any kind?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But also, I'm not the one to ask. I haven't played Madden in a very, very long time. I just got tired of paying $60 for roughly the same game every year. So I don't really play Madden very much anymore. So if someone knows the answer to that question.
Those kids must be so confused at how to evaluate a coach then. Like, what do they do? There's no Madden rating.
Yeah, there's no Madden rating for the coach. I guess you just kind of guess. So when you look at the Cardinals, let's just look there. And again, Cardinals fans, Jonathan Gannon, it's his coaching performance review. What do you, the nation of the Cardinals, say about your head coach and how he's doing this year? I think that Jonathan Gannon's had a very, very good year. It's just that the expectations for what the Cardinals were supposed to be, or what they could be, wound up being so high that I don't know that the Cardinals could live up to the expectations of what the fan base thought, which is that this was supposed to be a playoff team, which is, again, a tall order in the NFC in general, a really tall order in the NFC West. It's not like the Cardinals didn't have a genuine chance. They controlled their own destiny at one point, but then everybody started getting a whole lot better throughout the season. The Rams bounced back. The Niners bounced back a little. The Seahawks definitely, as far as their defense goes, they bounced back. How are you feeling about Jonathan Gannon, especially after a game like yesterday, where that was a game that the Cardinals could have won, and they let go of the rope? It slips through their fingers, and ultimately they lose it in overtime after another bad Kyler Murray turnover late. Like, that's also been a theme going on this season. So I'm very interested in where Cardinals fans sit on this. But Dylan, as the Cardinals fan on the show right now, normally we'd have Randy White, fire up the rant machine and get things going. But how are you feeling about Jonathan Gannon and your Cardinals right now?
So I'm not going to scream the way Randy White would, because I imagine Randy giving some kind of a screaming, vocal kind of performance of a defense for Jonathan Gannon. So I unfortunately, I won't do quite the same thing, but I think you highlighted something that's really important, which is you have to separate yourself from like what the expectations of this team kind of morphed into versus where they were, at the beginning of this season. And at the beginning of this season, there was zero expectation that this Cardinals team was going to make the playoffs. So, to feel like we didn't, step up to our potential just because we didn't achieve that goal, here we are at the end of the season. I don't blame that too much on Gannon, because if you think back to where we were at the beginning of the season, like the overall goals were to, improve upon the year before, but overhaul the culture. Because if you remember, the culture of the Cardinals, like, just disintegrated under the, Keim and Cliff Kingsbury regime. So there was a big part in just bringing us back to a team that is taken seriously internally, externally. Is this team doing everything it can to prepare itself and put itself in a place to win games? And like, those are the things that we saw out of the Cardinals this season. So, Gannon definitely deserves some credit for pointing us in, a much better direction than where things were before he was able to come in and take over. To indict him now just because we couldn't win games in December, which is a challenge that it seems like, all the regimes before this one have had. That's something that I think could be corrected through, some personnel moves. And this is where Gannon and, Austin Ford are going to have to come together and figure out, what those changes need to be in order to get the Cardinals back on the right path. But you take a look at these recent losses from the Cardinals right now, and yes, that Panthers one, that hurts. That is not a good loss by any means. But the three before that are 2 to the Seahawks, 1 to the Vikings. Seahawks and Vikings are both very likely playoff teams. So, to have those losses be the ones that drag us down so far that we're not going to make the postseason, it's unfortunate, but, what did you expect at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the thing. You have to kind of grade your coach on what the realistic expectations for the team was. And the Cardinals still have a lot of places where they just need more talent. They played, I think, well enough to convince Budda Baker that it was worth sticking around. He's the most important defensive player on the team, probably the most important player on the team. I mean, when you look at how consistently he shows up week after week. So, yeah, no, I think that that's true. And I do think that Gannon has these guys playing and fired up, and they do believe in him. And therefore, he has not lost the locker room. That's where I'm at on that. And there is a foundation for them to build on next year. I think the bigger question, and maybe we can do this in hour 2, do the quarterback performance reviews. But let's keep it with coaches. But I think the bigger issue is Kyler. I do think that is ultimately where you're living and dying as a Cardinals fan. On the text line, Oaktown Destroyer says AP needs 1 more year with the Raiders. Now, Oaktown Destroyer, I am not the biggest fan of what I've seen from Antonio Pierce this year. If you could fill me in on why you think he deserves to have 1 more year, and it could just be you just want to see more. You just want to see if, it was the roster after all with him, and he could win with a better roster. But there was a lot of things that happened throughout the year, including this, weird back and forth that he had with one of his own players on Instagram. Like, it's just there's stuff there that I personally, as a fan of coaches, don't know if I like what I saw from Antonio Pierce this year. But you're a Raiders fan. Why do you give him the vote of confidence? Average Joe says Dolphins fan, and if I give McCarthy a C. I'm guessing you mean McDaniels because McCarthy is Dallas, and that is not a C performance that happened there. He did kind of what we expected with the injuries this team has had. Bring him back next year and see what he can do. But he needs to be better against the better teams in this league. And that is kind of a thing with the Dolphins, which is that they feast on the really bad teams. And then those teams where they are struggling to win these games, it's the Bills, it's the Chiefs. And you don't have to win all of those games, but you should win some of them sometimes. And it just does seem like quite a bit of a struggle to make that happen. The Underpainter says we need to get rid of Kyler Moody. I mean, I do think there's a legitimate question there. He is. He's a little pouty, which I, again, not thrilled about. Not thrilled about at all. But with Kyler, I do think that there is a genuine question to be asked if Kyler is not the guy to move on from. Not because even, I don't even want to villainize him. I don't even want to make it seem like Kyler's this awful, awful quarterback. But you can only go so far as that position takes you in the National Football League. And I've seen the highs of Kyler Murray, and man, it's fun. I've seen the lows of Kyler Murray, and it reminds me of the Cowboys in the Tony Romo era, where it's like you're always in it season wise, but you need some game that you need to win. And coming down the stretch, there's always some interception or fumble or mistake being made by the quarterback. In this case, Kyler Murray. You're just not winning a whole lot of games like that in this league. Big George says, hello, gentlemen. Happy Monday. Happy Christmas Eve, which I'm glad Jeffrey's not here, Big George. I'm really glad Jeffrey's not here because that's exactly the kind of phrase he would hate. He would tell you to shut up. I won't tell you to. I'm just saying, know that that's exactly what he would say. He also says, well. ASU knows who their opponent is going to be in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. It's none other than your Texas Longhorns, Keon. Horns down. Oh, man. No, I mean, look, the Longhorns, in my opinion, they lost enough games that given the old school way that I look at college football and who gets to compete for a championship and who gets to compete for a title, by my own standard, I would have eliminated my own team. Like they lost to Georgia twice. To me, that's ball game. Like you can't be the national champion then because the team that would be that contender, you can't beat them. You had 2 cracks at them in a season and didn't get it done. To me, that's over. But that's not how the system works. And since that's not how the system works, I'm going to enjoy how the system works. And that means that I get to be happy that the Longhorns are still competing. And you cannot ruin my joy with your horns down. You just can't. You're just not going to be able to take this from me. Oaktown Destroyer says he did not have a quarterback. And this was him talking about Antonio Pierce needing one more year with the Raiders. He says he did not have a quarterback. First of all, to run to the offense correctly, and also they didn't have a running back either, and that's fair. When you're running out there with the ghost of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell and Desmond Ridder, that
it doesn't matter who the coach is.
Yeah, like you could take Bill Belichick and add him to that team. They aren't winning anything. You could take Bill Parcells and whoever in the history of the game, as the great coaches go, Tom Landry, it wouldn't make a difference with these Raiders. So that's true. But then you have Sir Drives a Lot, who is on the other side of the fence. He says Antonio Pierce needs to go. He also says Kyler needs to go. And he also says that Josh Jacobs needs to score 6 points tonight, non-PPR, for me to advance to my fantasy league finals. So I wish you the best of luck. I do think he's going to score more than 6.
I like your chances. Yeah.
I mean, look, they're going to lean on him early. I don't know. And we were talking about this earlier on Beat the Book, but maybe half an hour ago, that there is a very, very, very good chance that they pull him if they're up big, or, like it's just cold. Like the injury issue is always going to happen. You see in the cold a lot of, hamstring injuries, calf injuries, quadricep injuries, like, the soft tissue injuries. Those are the ones that really, really get at you. Sir Drives a Lot says, I like my chances, Keon. Be quiet. I agreed with you. I was saying he is going to score 6 tonight. I don't understand. Unless you're saying
he just doesn't want the negativity put out there.
Yeah, I don't. Oh no, pulling him. They're not going to pull him unless they're up big, and they're not listening to me. Sir Drives a Lot. the Matt LaFleur is not going, well, I wonder what strategies we can employ. Let's listen to a radio station in Phoenix, Arizona, with a team not involved in this matchup at all. Like they're not listening.
You know what? We've already heard in the last week of more prominent businesses, organizations, and how they leverage the people and the information available to them to make organizational decisions. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world considering the Jets, and how they're guiding the decisions they make. Maybe we might need to put our hat in the ring, Keon.
Potentially not Green Bay though. Now, I believe that the Jets could probably run a team that way. Absolutely. No questions asked. I am 100% just a big believer in how dysfunctional the Jets are. But the Packers aren't that. The Packers have basically never been that.
No, and actually to that point, and this was really the message that we were saying on Beat the Book a little while ago, just don't discredit Green Bay's ability and desire to protect their most important players, because they know that they can win this game extremely easily. The only thing that's a priority for them is coming away with a win. It's not for Josh Jacobs to get 2-3 touchdowns and to get 100+ rushing yards. And with the conditions of this game, it's just very likely you're not going to see the biggest stars on Green Bay play a full game. I don't believe the Saints are going to be competitive enough to force Green Bay to keep their guys out there. And then you factor in the weather as well. You factor in Spencer Rattler being a Phoenix native. If you're a Phoenix native yourself, you don't hold up very well in the cold.
I know I don't. I'm not even a Phoenix native, as in terms of I'm not from here. I've only lived here for a little over 3 years now, and I already can't go back east anymore. I don't do well in the cold. My body has given that up, and I've only been here for a little bit. Spencer Rattler grew up here, played at Oklahoma, played at South Carolina. 10 degrees is not something that he can even mentally understand, to the point where, to prepare for this game, he was hanging out in a walk-in freezer just to get used to the feeling of how cold it would be, which isn't a bad idea, but that tells you just how far behind the 8 ball in terms of managing that particular feeling he actually is.
As soon as I read that story, I felt so good about taking his unders.
Sir Drives a Lot says 60 yards or a touchdown is all I'm asking for. I think he gets it. Sir Drives a Lot.
Totally reasonable.
I really do. Big George says one day somebody prominent is going to listen to this show and take your advice, Keon. Who knows? Mike Budenholzer might listen, or better yet, maybe he should listen to this show. I genuinely hope not. I hope that Mike Budenholzer has seen and coached enough basketball, both himself, as this is his 3rd head coaching job, and then as an assistant under Greg Popovich. I truly hope and pray that he doesn't need to listen to this show of all shows for advice.
James Jones, if you're listening, trade Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah, like this is to find out that a owner of a team or a GM of a team or a coach of a team listen to a radio show in a completely different market to get advice for what they should do tonight is the stuff that gets people fired, Big George, and rightfully so, by the way. You deserve to be fired. If I find out that you're listening to this show for advice, I'll fire you, and I don't even have the authority to do that. Oaktown Destroyer says, now, if the Raiders can get Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, I'd be okay with that to get rid of AP. That's what I was thinking, because it doesn't seem like he's the obvious first choice of the Bears, which would be stupid to me. But if the Bears decide to go Vrabel, I can understand it. Vrabel did a lot of winning when he was with the Titans. But if they don't go after Ben Johnson, I think your Raiders should. I think that should potentially happen. Last text here. The Berg says, fired? Yes, Berg. Fired. And that's all we're going to end this note on. We've got a little bit more to get to, obviously, and we're going to continue talking about this. This is the coaching performance review, the annual coaching review. How do you feel about your coaches? We already had some Raider fans weigh in on Antonio Pierce. One says yes, one says no. We had a Dolphins fan talk about Mike McDaniel and how McDaniel kind of had a beat up team and did exactly what you would think would happen with a team that was injured and missing its starting quarterback for a lot of it. So how do you feel that your coach is doing for your team? I'll talk about, the Commanders a little bit. Maybe that's an excuse for me to talk about them. Who knows? But that's coming up next right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
This is Brent Musburger's Action Update on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. This update brought to you by Sport Trade. Download the Sport Trade app and use code VSIN to earn 10% cash back on every bet in your first week. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
NBA, the Phoenix Suns are in Denver tonight to take on the Nuggets. Phoenix is a 6.5-point underdog, -110 against the spread. The Nuggets also -110, minus the 6.5. On the money line, Nuggets 270, while the Suns are +220, and the over-under at 232.5. NFL, the Arizona Cardinals were eliminated from the postseason on Sunday as they fell in overtime to the Carolina Panthers, 36-30. The Cardinals have dropped 4 of their last 5, now at 7-8 on the season. Week 17, they'll play on Saturday night against the LA Rams at SoFi Stadium. I'm Tony Desiri with your VSiN Action Update on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Sports betting apps are not created equal. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here to talk about the Sport Trade advantage. With higher payouts, Sport Trade is the ultimate sports betting experience. Sport Trade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's changing in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus -108 odds, then Sport Trade is for you. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. And if you're an experienced bettor and prefer American odds, you'll get pricing closer to -106 versus the normal -110, coupled with instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. So download Sport Trade today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Average Joe on the text line says, Woody Johnson listens to this show and wants you to talk more about the Jets. Well, first off, Woody Johnson should text in himself and ask that. 1. 2, why? Who can save the Jets? Honestly.
I mean, if there's just more ridiculous news coming out about them, then we feel pretty inclined to discuss it.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Outside of that, no one can save the Jets. No one can fix the Jets. The Jets are they're just like that. They're just like that. And this is also not the owner performance review. This is the coaching performance review. How is your coach doing right now for your team this season? Are you happy with them? Are you unhappy with them? Like, what were the expectations for your team? Did they meet those expectations? I'm just curious. I'd like to know. But let's get into the nuts and bolts of what happened with the Cardinals yesterday, because I do think that this is one of those games where you just kind of kick yourself because the opportunities were there for the Cardinals to win this game. And when you look at it on paper, it does look like Kyler played well enough for the Cardinals to win this game, even though it was a very slow start. Or you look at James Conner, and James Conner played well enough for the Cardinals to win this game. But where it really felt like this team got stuck in the mud was the passing game. Kyler, 200-yard passing game, but it was an okay 200-yard passing game. And a lot of that was, second half combined with Kyler running the football and using his legs. He had 63 yards added on the ground. But when you look at some of the depth of target on some of these throws, they just weren't that deep. They weren't stretching the defense. They weren't putting pressure on the Panthers secondary. And that entire thing is a gigantic problem to me. Like, I just think that this is not sustainable football moving forward, which is why I just floated it out there that maybe the Cardinals move on from Kyler, because I think that stability is probably the thing that they're missing the most. They can't rely on him to be routinely bad or good. It's you get the good games when you get the good games, you get the bad games when you get the bad games, and you're trying to sort of eat around the crust, kind of like you're just looking at a team that never quite seems to be in rhythm. And we heard it in the VSiN update not that long ago, losing 4 out of the last 5, and it's not the worst set of 4 to lose to. Really, the Seahawks are likely a playoff team, and they lost 2 to them. They lost a game to the Vikings, which is also not only a playoff team, but a team that's still very much in play to have the number 1 overall seed in the NFC of all teams. But this Panthers game has to feel a little bit bad because the Panthers have been unable to finish a lot of the big performances that they've had. And so to have this be against the Cardinals on a day where they start kind of slow and then Kyler just has the back-breaking interception at the end, man, that's got to be at least a little bit frustrating organizationally, right?
Oh, absolutely. But here's also the thing with Kyler Murray and potentially moving on from him right now. I mean, you can't put something like that into motion unless, you've got that solution ready to go. So like the one thing I would not want to see the Cardinals do is like move on from Kyler Murray and then just go back into this kind of no man's land of worthless quarterbacks, because we've seen that from time to time. And, some franchises get fortunate enough to like find that successor to your quarterback and then transition them in. And, it's pretty seamless. The Packers seem to have a, really good track record of doing something like that. The Cardinals, unfortunately, have a track record of just like toiling around with miserable quarterbacks for very lengthy periods of time. So, to move on from Kyler and like sign Kirk Cousins or something like that,
Yeah,
I couldn't get behind that.
Absolutely not Kirk Cousins.
I'm looking at like quarterback prospects, that are
right.
Coming out. The first couple of quarterbacks are probably already spoken for at this point, because we know the Giants are probably taking one. We know the Raiders are probably taking one. So then you kind of look at, who's left, and, is a guy like Jalen Milroe the answer? Or
I don't think that you can expect him or Quinn Ewers, who's probably going to be in that same area in the draft, maybe a little bit later on. I'm seeing on the big board here for, Carson Beck is a little bit further down there if you want to develop him. Like those guys, especially Carson and Jalen, incredibly young football players. Like if you want to say we'll stash you on the bench and wait for your development, then that's one thing. And I do think that that's probably
and I'd like to see that too. I think that's probably the most viable way for the Cardinals to move forward. Is like it would not hurt at all to start just getting that next guy prepped. I mean, we don't really have a signature backup quarterback at this point. Something for the fan base to have some hope in, this person being the future, which is exactly what, the Green Bay fan base got when they were transitioning from, Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And then they got it again when Jordan Love got brought into the fold. And, what's happened is, they turn over to that next quarterback. And I mean, these are still gambles. I mean, you really don't know until you hand them the keys and you let them go. But
you do have a little bit more of a say in the development of that quarterback when you do it that way. Like Jordan Love, like I don't know if Jordan Love would have been the same kind of quarterback if year one he just got thrown to the wolves like a lot of these quarterbacks do. I mean, you could even make that case for Mahomes. Like Mahomes was always going to be talented, but being able to settle down, kind of put some of the backyard football stuff that he was known for at Texas Tech to the side and play inside of the structure of an offense, that takes a year. That takes some time of playing behind Alex Smith, who is the ultimate I play inside of structure guy. If you can get somebody to be that torchbearer for a quarterback, then you go ahead and do it. And maybe Kyler can be that guy. But there are also some things that you have to worry about with the young quarterback, like the body language, for instance. And if you have somebody who, like Kyler, is known for having body language that's very, very, I don't even want to be negative about it, very demonstrative. Like, exactly what he's feeling. If he's miserable about the team, if he's down on the team, it's all over his face. The shoulders are slumped. And you don't have to be this big rah-rah guy, but kind of want your quarterback to at least be the steadiest guy on the team, if
be a stronger leader in that regard. And, to that point, like Jaden Daniels against the Eagles in that game, like there were so many times where he could have just got down on himself.
Yeah, because he didn't play. He didn't play a perfect game. The two interceptions, the second one was worse than the first one.
But I mean, he's so even keeled. He just, you could tell he's frustrated, but he doesn't just sit there and pout about it. He goes right back to the bench. He starts looking at the iPad, starts trying to figure out, what he needs to correct on the next drive. And then he goes out and he gets the job done.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the reason why, even though you can argue whether or not they're starting caliber quarterbacks in this league, guys like, there's always going to be a space in the league for guys like Jameis and guys like Baker Mayfield, guys that just don't mind ripping it. They get back out there, they throw an interception. Okay, fine, bounce back. Next play, I've already forgotten. I'm moving on. Kyler kind of hangs on to the past a little bit, and it does. When you watch this team, it does seem to slow them down. It does seem to drag them down, and he doesn't quite get out of his own head about that kind of stuff. And when you're playing that position, that's where it's the hardest to see that kind of leadership quality missing. It's just tough to see as a fan of football. The Berg says the Cardinals are the Cardinals, consistent underachievers. Sam Darnold, as called in September for NFL MVP. He's not going to win NFL MVP, Burke. Sam Darnold is not winning the MVP award because his name isn't Josh Allen. Baker's Cocky Hen says Kyler is hands down the best quarterback at the game 500. I blame video games. Kyler Murray is the kid who turns off the game as soon as he knows he's too far behind. Once video game systems became the advance, guys like this were inevitable. I disagree. Like, everybody in this league plays video games. At this particular point, Kyler's not the youngest guy in the league. They all play video games. Baker Mayfield definitely does because he talks about it all the time. He doesn't give up. There's no quit in Baker. No, you can't blame video games for this. That's crazy. So I will tell you, one time I was playing Madden, and I was doing the My Player campaign, and the Dallas Cowboys drafted me, and I turned off the console. Just flat out restarted the GameCube.
Like, I now not consent to that.
Yeah, now that I will not allow on any level. That one I had to quit just in the middle of everything. But no, Baker's Cocky Hands. I don't think video games are at fault for Kyler Murray being the kind of person who can't persevere. There are plenty of people who play video games and can, and they do the same job he does in the same league he does it in. The Underpainter says, is it possible for the Arizona Cardinals to get Jim Carrey, Daniel Jones, a.k.a. Daniel Jones?
Oh, God.
Daniel Jones does not look like Jim Carrey. I'm going to pull the two of those up later.
And we won't touch Daniel Jones
with
like a 10-foot pole. No, thank you.
Let's see. He get Daniel Jones from the Vikings, or Henry the Prince Wentz from the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think you want him either. I don't think you want either of those people starting at quarterback for you. Now, I say this because I'm an NFC East person, and I got Carson Wentz. He was on my team. The version of Carson Wentz that played for the Commanders, you do not want on your football team. And the version of Daniel Jones that has ever existed, you do not want on your football team. And he's been that way the whole time. You don't want this. You think you want this. I promise you, no, you don't. No, you don't. But I do think that there is an argument for trying to get out of the Kyler contract if you're willing to move on from that. Like, if you're going to say, let's get the bridge quarterback, and the bridge quarterback is going to make us bad enough to get a quarterback, obviously not this year, but you're looking at 26. Drew Aller is considered the top quarterback in that draft, which ain't great. Nico Iamaleava, maybe there's something there as far as his growth goes. Arch Manning, his name will come up. And I saw a lot of the good things coming up at the end of this season for Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. So there's some quarterback names that are out there, and we'll see, who rises to the top in 26. But you're capped by Kyler. I think that's pretty clear. The question is, are you okay with that cap? Do you think that there is some other portion of your team that can elevate the roster? And my guess would be, if you're Jonathan Gannon, you feel like your defense can elevate your roster regardless of what the quarterback does. But to do that, to be the kind of Bears team in 2006 that goes to a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman, you need an all-timer of a defense. That would be the only way to me that really, really works. I'm not saying play the game where you're running around grabbing mediocre quarterbacks, but you're getting a bridge quarterback with the knowledge that in a year, we're trying to do something. We are trying to get a guy. And maybe that guy is Darnold, because I don't know that Darnold is going back to the Vikings. Darnold is he's going to have his opportunity in the open market there. And I think the Vikings want to get their chance to start JJ McCarthy, for better or for worse. Taco Kenny says, Daniel Jones to the Raiders, we'll take anybody. It's okay, because you're drafting. You don't have to take Daniel Jones.
There's actually another prominent quarterback name out there. He was actually on ESPN today talking about the likelihood of him getting released by his team. And, just to bring this full circle, I am talking about Aaron Rodgers on the New York Jets.
Oh, boy.
He was on the Pat McAfee show earlier today. And he's even getting in on this whole teenage son, running the team thing. So this is a verbatim quote. He said, being released would be a first. Being released by a teenager, that would also be a first. So he goes on, though, to kind of take this conversation a little bit more seriously. And he's basically saying, there's a very strong likelihood I'm going to get cut. And, I'm still interested in trying to play. I'm even willing to take a pay cut because I've made a ton of money in my career. These are things that were said in this interview.
Interesting.
So that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. If Aaron Rodgers is willing to sign a veteran minimum, I would not be opposed to bringing him over to the Cardinals to let him compete with Kyler. Just see. I mean, what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you could see. Now, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers wants to show up anywhere and compete for a job. That would be something.
He wants to see if anyone's willing to just hand him a starting job. But if he doesn't necessarily like what he finds and he still wants to be in the league and he is going to be willing to compete.
And I do think someone will hand him that job. There are just enough teams that are desperate. Now, is he desperate enough to play for one of these teams? That's the real question.
Twofold there, right?
It does go both ways. I do think that at this stage in Aaron Rodgers' career, Super Bowl's got to be on the brain. And if Super Bowl is what you have in store, then it can't be the Raiders right now, for instance, who are probably going to draft a guy, probably Shedeur or Cam Ward, depending on which one of them ends up grading out better over the course of the draft process, and also Giants or Raiders, who ends up with the first pick in the draft, because it doesn't seem like that's a clear answer either, to be 100% honest. So. Yeah, I don't know about that one, but also, I'm also just not big on where Aaron Rodgers is right now. The Aaron Rodgers I saw this year, I would not want to watch play for my team. The only way that you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers is if you think he can help you win right now, or if you think that, okay, I've got somebody that I can have mentored by him. Those are the only two things that I can think of as far as bringing him on your team.
I think Kyler's just had things a little too comfortable. There's never been really a guy behind him that it's like, hey man, if you're not cutting it, we're going to turn to this other dude because you just don't have it. He's never really dealt with that dynamic in his entirety of being with the Cardinals. So there could be some positive sort of side effect of bringing a guy like Rodgers in, because now it's like, look, man, you need to perform up to your contract.
So why not Darnold?
Oh, well, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
It could be.
Darnold is younger, and there might actually be something there.
But you would think Darnold is looking to capitalize off the best season he's just ever had in his career.
You would have to pay.
His agent would not let him pull a Tyus Jones, and come out to Arizona and play for less money.
You would have to pay him, and it would have to be a contract that probably is longer than 3 years. I can't imagine he's taking anything less than 3 after the year that he's had. I do think that there is going to be some team that just kind of looks at where they're sitting in the draft order and goes, yeah, we're going to have to do this. And, we'll hope that what you have offensively supports him enough in the way that the Vikings were able to. And that's already a tough order just because of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. That Vikings team offensively does have a lot of weapons. Slow-Mo Zoe says, how about the Red Rocket to the Cardinals? Andy Dalton, I mean, it wouldn't cost you very much. So there is that, I guess, but why? What does he do for the team? Because if your goal is to get better, he doesn't make you better enough. And also he's at that stage in his career. We're coming up to the end of Andy Dalton, if you can believe it. He's been in the league a long time. I don't know that makes you better enough to say, all right, we're moving on from Kyler for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and I still don't think that really kind of pressures Kyler enough. Like if they bring in Andy Dalton, he's just gonna chuckle and keep playing Call of Duty. So
yeah, I don't know that necessarily changes a whole lot. Andy Dalton had a couple of good games this year, but he also had some classic Andy Dalton games. Golden Domer says, no Aaron Rodgers, please. Which Golden Domer, by the way, can you send me your government name and your email address? Just you text that to me. We can go ahead and get you that prize that we owe you. Baker's Cocky Hen says Cleveland would take Aaron Rodgers today. Absolutely. What choice do they have? They suck. That is a team that would take Literally anybody.
I
They
think the
take
Saints would too.
the Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the other options that are out there. Andy Dalton apparently.
Jacksonville maybe would possibly consider it.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is just a matter of how healthy is Trevor Lawrence come next season. And it's a concussion that he's got right now, so I think he'll probably be fine and good to go. I don't know that those options are better than Trevor, but I do think that when you look at what is happening, with the Cardinals from the standpoint of a quarterback, like something has to change. I just don't want the change to be a lateral change. Don't go sideways. Go up or go down, because if you go down, then you can draft a guy maybe. If you go up, well, then that means you'd be a playoff team. If you were to have won a couple more games here and there this season, you'd be a playoff team. And that's the kind of year that the Cardinals have had. You need a guy who can get you over the hump of that. The other thing that we've been talking about is your coaching performance review, your 2024 NFL coaching performance review, your team. How has your coach done for you this year? Was he good? Was he bad? And why? Also, we didn't get nearly enough Jonathan Gannon. Most people seem to be pleased with Jonathan Gannon because the only complaints we've had about the Cardinals have all been Kyler Murray related. Silver Pops, I see you on the text line. We are up against the break. We'll come back, and on the other side, we will continue talking some Arizona Cardinals, and then we'll roll into a little bit of Phoenix Suns talk as well. You're listening to the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Sports bettors, we've all been there. You have a live bet lined up. You check the odds one more time, place the bet only to see the bet delayed by the spinny wheel, line move, and your bet rejected. My name's Alex Kane, and I'm the founder and CEO of SportTrade, Arizona's newest sports betting app. At the core of the SportTrade offering is our probability-based odds. In other words, the Cardinals may be offered at 55% odds to win, a lot simpler than minus 125. Place your bet at 55% odds, and as your win probability changes, so does the value of your bet, giving you the ability to cash out with total control. And the best part, no spinning wheels. Live bets on SportTrade are instantly accepted. Download SportTrade on your iPhone today and use code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet in your first week. Terms apply.
SportTrade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
Everybody's got a podcast these days. Comedy, politics, true crime, you name it. But how many actually teach you anything useful? Harman Solar has an entertaining podcast that is vital if you've been thinking about looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Ralph and Ben explore the intricacies of utilities, equipment, processes, and more. Their primary objective is to educate and empower you to make informed decisions on your solar journey. So increase your knowledge, not your bills. Go check it out right now. It's the Harman Solar Podcast at harmansolar.com.
Hear that? The sound of your antique fountain pen gliding across linen paper as you journal in the park. If you were here, you'd be inspired by the warm breeze. But you're not here. Your self-care happens out on the road, riding your motorcycle protected by Progressive. And the wind in your face on the road is all the inspiration you need. So if you ride, get a quote and see if you could save with Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Now that's inspiring. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
In most countries of the world, Forte means door. United Forte Custom Doors, located in the Scottsdale Airport Design District, is now open with over 40,000 European doors, all in stock, ready for delivery, and at wholesale prices. Designers, contractors, builders, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality at United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
Dude, it's time to head to Grandma's for the holiday feast.
Man, didn't you just smoke a bowl?
Yeah, but it's cool, man. Grandma won't notice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Someone noticed, and it wasn't Grandma. If you think that others can't tell that you've been smoking marijuana and driving high, think again. Always remember, if you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI.
The most important event in sports could happen at any time.
Like right now.
Or right now. Or even
Now.
don't miss history. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or at 1580thefanatic.com.
chugging along here on a Monday afternoon, and I put it out there because I wanted to know the fourth dimension. What do you think of how the NFL coaches are doing, specifically your coach? But if you have opinions on other coaches as well, I am not opposed to necessarily hearing that. Baker's cocky hands on the text line, handing out grades like he's a damn school teacher, is saying that Kevin Stefanski gets an F for not benching Watson. Grow a pair and tell the owner he paid for a guy that sucks and let the chips fall. Bill Callahan leaving affected that offense a lot. Kevin hasn't done anything to keep it together. In other news, Ryan Day got his team ready for once, and I'm excited. I think you should be, by the way. Like there was a lot that happened over this weekend, and when it comes to college football, and perhaps we'll touch on just a little bit of that. But yeah, Stefanski is one of those guys where he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's easy to say he gets an F for not benching Watson. Do you go into your boss's office when he's wrong and tell him that that the decisions that he made are bad decisions? Because I can't do that. I've never needed to, thankfully, but I don't want to figure out what it's like to walk into Radio Ron's office and try to tell him off. I'll be jobless next week, and only because it's the holidays right now. Otherwise, I'd be jobless this week. No, you can't just walk into the owner's office and tell him that the guy he paid for sucks. The owner wants Deshaun Watson to start. You either quit or you start Deshaun Watson, and NFL paychecks are nice. So you start Deshaun Watson, and that's what it is. The Browns organization is bad. And I do think that there's a lot of things with Stefanski where like his offense without Callahan has been exposed a little bit. There hasn't been nearly enough adjustments made, but again, you're playing with, Jameis Winston, who is the ultimate 30 for 30 guy. If you give him a full season to play, he will throw you 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. So you're just going to have to figure out how that goes. Flappy Max says, my team is Pittsburgh, and I have no problems with Mike Tomlin at all.
Because Mike Tomlin,
imagine that.
He's the gold standard.
He is the gold standard. Mike Tomlin is an A. That just every year it doesn't
even matter like what players are on the field for him. I don't know if there's anyone else that has just such a long track record of just consistent success. I mean, not to the point where he's bringing home Super Bowls every year, but even in the years where you go, no way, this Steelers team just does not have enough to make the postseason. They make the postseason.
That's why I always give him the edge over John Harbaugh, is because Harbaugh is also consistently, he's been there forever. Not as long as Tomlin, but he's been there a while in an AFC North that just is brutal, and these teams wear on each other and beat each other up. The reason why Harbaugh's been there is because the Ravens have been so successful and consistently good. But they are that because they always have good players. This is probably the worst defense they've had, but they still have MVP candidate Lamar Jackson and by the way, reigning MVP Lamar Jackson. They've added Derrick Henry to this roster. When you look at their wide receivers, whether it's Zay Flowers, whether it's Rashad Bateman, like they've done a good job in the draft and they have talent. That doesn't always happen with Pittsburgh. The quarterback is not even a Pro Bowler some years. And Tomlin's like, yeah, we're still above 500. Like, that's incredible. And that's the reason why no one should have any complaints with Mike Tomlin at all.
Going back to the Browns and Stefanski and, the whole thing with Deshaun Watson, the owner of the Browns knows exactly what he did wrong with Deshaun Watson. And something that, Keon, you had actually pointed out to me like a while back, and that whole thing just kind of jogged my memory. Have you ever looked at Deshaun Watson's contract and just like the sheer numbers behind it and it's the
hilarious.
Bulk of his money is coming in?
If you hate the Browns, and I don't hate the Browns like just because they're the Browns, I hate specifically an organization who could pay Deshaun Watson like that with no conscience. It's easy to laugh at them. That's funny. That's some good comedy right there, is just reading the Deshaun Watson contract and realizing how stuck they are with him.
Deshaun Watson's base salary this year was $1.2 million. Deshaun Watson's base salary next year is $46 million. His cap hit for this season, just like a hair under $28 million. His cap hit next season, just a hair under $73 million. So if you want to be the guy to go into that owner's office and try and beat that dead horse, because the way an owner thinks about this, if their NFL team is just like their little passion project, but they're making hand over fist tons of money, doing like their actual business, then maybe they don't care about this as much. But the owner of the Browns, I have to believe they have these numbers like seared into their mind.
Yeah. Because you're cutting him a guaranteed game check. There aren't incentives he has to hit. That's guaranteed money. In the NFL, that never happens. When they say, Patrick Mahomes has, this $100 million, they're counting all the incentive money. It's actually kind of not that honest to be fair. But when you look at the money with Deshaun Watson, it's not incentive money. That's all guaranteed cash, whether he plays or doesn't play, whether they cut him or they don't cut him. So you end up with the one guy in the league that kind of has an NBA-ish contract where it's like, there's no point in cutting him because you still have to pay him. And a lot of the dead money is going to count against the cap anyway. You're not even getting relief there.
This single contract, if you think back to the time of when all of this stuff happened, a few years ago, like this single contract almost ignited like a civil war amongst the owners of the NFL. So, all those other owners now, they are pointing at the Browns and laughing hysterically. And, the Browns know what they did. They know they messed up. I don't think anyone's going to be a taker and going to the owner there and saying, why is Deshaun still on the roster?
Yeah, you can, but it's good if the owner has to choose between you and the guy he's paying millions of dollars guaranteed, and you give him a reason to choose the guy he's paying millions of dollars guaranteed instead of you. That's you ruining your own paycheck. And why would you do that? Why would you do that? Silver Pop says the Cardinals front office is so out of it and delusional, they might want to bring in Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, or better yet, Al Bundy from Polk High. You are making references that I don't fully understand. Al Bundy, I get a little bit. I got nothing for Napoleon Dynamite. I watched the movie once. I didn't really like it. I didn't understand the movie really. Maybe I'm not Mormon enough to get any of it, but to your actual point, I don't think the Cardinals front office is delusional. Why do you think they're delusional? I would really like to know, Silver Pops, because I think that they had a reasonable expectation of what this team is going to be. Now, the fan base might have gotten a little delusional when the Cardinals slid into first place in the NFC West. I think it was very easy for everybody to go, maybe this is a playoff year. But the front office for the Cardinals, what have they done that leads you to believe that they are delusional? Because that's a strong word. You're essentially saying that they are imagining something that isn't there. And I think that Monty Ossenfort's been very level-headed about how he's put this team together. And Jonathan Gannon's been very level-headed about coaching this team and what it takes to be successful with this team. They know that they need more talent. What delusion could you possibly be talking about? Flappy Max says, my wife's team is the Cardinals and she's ready to throw hands. Which, that they're frustrating, but I don't know that that's a Jonathan Gannon problem. Baker's Cocky Hen says, just because you have to pay the man doesn't mean you have to play the man. And I agree with you, but the decision to that is not the coach's decision. For whether you think it's fair or not fair, and whether you think it's right or wrong. If the owner says, play the guy I'm paying, you play the guy he's paying, or you let him fire you. And NFL jobs, I don't know if you've noticed them, they're some of the most rare jobs on the face of the earth. There are 32 jobs for an NFL head coach. You don't have one of those jobs, you don't have anything. No one is going to sit there and fight the Haslams to play Jameis instead of Deshaun. No, you play the guy the owner tells you to play because he cuts your check. This is not every organization is not like this, right? Like when you look at what the Patriots were with Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft, that's a cooperative situation. When you look at what's going on with the Packers, the structure of the Packers means that, there's an owner there. There's a CEO. There's a guy that represents all of the Packer fans, the shareholders, and the CEO is making decisions alongside the general manager, and there's some cooperation there. You do need that synthesis. You do need the owner and the general manager and the head coach to all be lined up and in agreement and making the same decision. And not every owner is like that. I root for the Washington Commanders. Josh Harris actually is very much like that. Dan Snyder wasn't. Dan Snyder wanted to be the guy. Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys want to be the guy. That's what they're like, and so like it's not a cooperative thing. If Jerry Jones wants to play a guy, you think there's anything Mike McCarthy can say to Jerry Jones to make him not play that guy? No, there isn't. And the Browns are kind of a similar place.
Jimmy Haslam has a net worth of about $8 billion. And as far as where that ranks amongst the NFL owners, that's actually in like the more wealthy half. He's not like towards the bottom.
Yeah.
So maybe the family does have enough to just kind of eat the loss, but
they do, but he doesn't want to.
Right. I was going to say, I mean, I don't think they're passionate enough about seeing the Browns be the best version of themselves to do that. Like that's where the bottom line is going to stop that.
Offhanded things that Jimmy Haslam has said, and I'm being very nice about this. Some things that may be racially charged in the past. And he dug his heels in and did not apologize and just got himself sued over it. That's the person we're dealing with. We're not dealing with the guy that you're reasoning with, Spankers Cocky Heads.
Very stubborn.
Very, very stubborn. We've got more. We'll get to the Suns next, right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
The Fanatic is your home for fall football. Catch the NFL and NCAA live games on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365.
At Diamond Dave's Desert Wholesale Diamonds,
we offer incredible diamonds, both mined and cultivated, all at amazingly low prices.
Check out these cultivated lab-grown diamond earrings.
2 carats total weight, collection color and lab-grown, only $25.90.
And she'd love this amazing tennis bracelet in natural mined.
4 carats total weight in yellow or white gold, only $39.90.
And how about this diamond chain in cultivated?
12.5 carats total weight, collection color and lab-grown, only $79.90.
And last but not least, especially this year, 1.5 carat floating diamond pendant.
Collection color and lab grown, only $9.90.
Call, email, or message us for an in-person appointment.
Or sit back and relax for free FedEx shipping anywhere in the USA.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450. That's 480-397-2450. Or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave Cantor. That's at Diamond Dave, Kantor.
Order for Jennifer C.
Is this my double shot, double cream, double froth, double pump, double whip, double sleeve?
Yeah. Can you handle that much caffeine?
Did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Oh, really? That's great.
Seriously, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Yeah, you just said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
I can't have any more? Why not?
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Dude, it's time to head to Grandma's for the holiday feast.
Man, didn't you just smoke a bowl?
Yeah, but it's cool, man. Grandma won't notice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Someone noticed, and it wasn't Grandma. If you think that others can't tell that you've been smoking marijuana and driving high, think again. Always remember, if you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI.
They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
What in? The People's Open is back. See the PGA Tour's best tee it up at the 2025 WM Phoenix Open February 3rd through the 9th at TPC Scottsdale. Get tournament and ticket info at WMPhoenixOpen.com. WMPhoenixOpen.com.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
Let me people, settle down.
Because it's time.
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show.
Let's do it.
You're listening to hour number 2 of the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic. Sun is setting here in Uptown Scottsdale. I'm Keon Rose. Alongside me is our betting expert in the building, Dylan Cohen. And we're just chugging along here on a Monday afternoon, the day before Christmas Eve. 2 days away from Christmas. And I hope you guys are having happy holidays, celebrating whatever holiday you happen to be celebrating this time of year. I'm going to let the Cardinals thing go, but I do still want to know about your NFL coaching annual reviews. How's your coach doing? We've got a few teams in here. Baker's Cocky Hens was talking about the Browns, and that was he's frustrated. He's frustrated, and I think that he has directed that at the coach when you should be directing that at the owner. The owner wants to start a guy who is not good at football because he's a stubborn person. Baker's Cocky Hens also said cash the Northern Illinois tickets if you took them. So if that means anything to you, because if you're referencing anything from last week, Baker's Cocky Heads, I hope you understand that nobody on the show remembers anything beyond like a day ago. We are goldfish here. We are absolute goldfish. But we're going to move along to the NBA. Again, if you've got any more coaching grades you want to give, we'd love to get those. But we're going to move on to basketball because the Suns, they played on Saturday, and it did not go well, even though they were playing the Pistons. Dylan, what went wrong there, man?
God, I mean, at this point, I mean, we're kind of scratching our heads, just really wondering, what is going on with this Suns team. I mean, we're back in our funk, and we have Kevin Durant. There's no Devin Booker, of course. This Suns team, optically, like you can just kind of tell that something is up, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what that might be. But the confidence, it's just not, it's not there the same way that it was, the first 10 plus games of the season where we did have our big three and we did race out to, that great start. So, I mean, on the one hand, we're hurting without Devin Booker, but that shouldn't have prevented us from being able to beat the Pistons. So when we're like down for most of the game against Detroit, because that wasn't a scenario where like we raced out to a lead and we held it, and then all of a sudden they came back and they beat us. That wasn't the kind of game it was. The Suns were trailing for just about the entire game. I mean, at the end of the first quarter, they were down 41-26. So there's a confidence issue that's going on. You would think that at least having Kevin Durant and Beal on the court would be enough to, not let that be something that drags us down. But this is where, I mean, we need Coach Budenholzer to, bring the guys together and instill some hope that, I mean, you don't need Booker necessarily to go out and get a win. If we were missing Booker and Durant, then I can understand it. But the way Kevin Durant's been playing this season,
it just seems like a waste.
It does. And we definitely brought enough to the table, in terms of talent and skill to be able to defeat that Pistons team that came in here. But I mean, Cade Cunningham, 28 points, 13 assists. Jalen Duren goes for 11 rebounds. And our leading rebounder in that game, it wasn't our starting center who's making $20 million a season. It was our backup center, Mason Plumlee. He had 9 rebounds. So Yusuf Nurkic, 25 minutes, 7 rebounds, 10 points, 2 steals, no blocks, -6 ± rating. I mean, Nurkic to not be able to keep himself on the court for at least 30 minutes or more.
That's a problem.
It's a big problem.
That's a massive problem. If you say you have the chance to talk to James Jones, you have his ear for a second. You want to offer any piece of advice besides just get rid of Nurkic. What would you do to try and maybe jumpstart this team? Because I don't know what you can do from an X's and O's perspective. Like I think with Coach Bud, it's just you're going to have to start empowering some of these other guys to start shooting the basketball. Like waiting for Durant to get healthy or waiting for Booker to get healthy or Beal to get healthy so that you have all three of them. Like that clearly isn't the play here because they are just never healthy together.
I would honestly look to try and just get whatever you can out of Nurkic. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for someone, that can come back and contribute on the team. If we can get draft capital and some kind of compensation, anything getting out of Nurkic's contract, I do see the Suns already kind of doing the things that I would at least identify to do, which would be to elevate Plumlee. Let's get Oso Ighodaro some more reps. I mean, if he can really build on some of the things that he's already shown this season, Oso Ighodaro has the potential to be 25 plus a minute, contributor, who could probably split time with Plumlee and be that full-time starting center. And then I would have to imagine, once we get, beyond the trade deadline, when you're still in that period where you could sign some free agents and there's going to be some other teams that are looking to release guys or cut guys, there could be an opportunity there to find, a big man, for cheap to bring him in and, kind of build that depth back up. But at this point, the last thing I want to see is us continuing to beat a dead horse with Nurkic and trying to set him up for threes. Like, yeah, he's going to get him wide open, but he's not going to shoot it at a reliable clip for it to make a difference. Let's start getting Ighodaro, more reps and seeing, what we have in him, because he has shown flashes, at least to be a small ball center in this league. Like that is so valuable right now because that's just the direction that everything is going in.
Right.
When you're playing these higher stakes games, we saw it in the NBA Cup. Teams are not, looking to put the 5 tallest guys that they have on the floor and play from the inside out. Everyone's playing from the outside in. So, we have the shooters. I mean, we've got guys that can shoot 3-pointers at a very high clip.
Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen and at Bradley Beal, who's been shooting, very well from 3 this season.
And Monte Morris and Tyus Jones. Yeah. I mean, all these guys, we have extremely capable shooters. And if we can get some consistency out of the team 3-point shooting game, that center position is a lot less consequential, when all of those threes are falling. It's when they're not falling, is our guy in the center, is he going to make a difference on the offensive rebounds and turn those into second chances? Is he going to compete on the defensive side and really be that anchor? Like, I do want to give Nurkic some credit in that I see him as still a capable defensive anchor, but it's in his ability to get up and down the court. That just is drastically different than the Nurkic that we got that played 76 games last year. This one struggles seemingly from the get-go to be able to get himself up and down, and then be able to consistently do that throughout the entire game. And that's where Plumlee and Oso Ighodaro are getting these opportunities because Nurkic is not mobile enough to, stay with whoever, the opposing team's big man is. And if it's a guy like Jalen Duren, who's more of an undersized center,
and
he's quick.
He's just getting cooked. I mean, Nurkic was just getting cooked out there. And like, it just happens so often that it's at this point, we're bordering on basketball malpractice to not have that sorted out. That's what I think. So let's move on to some of the other NBA games tonight, right after I take a look at the text line, because we got a couple of more coaching grades come in. Beer Nuts says, our fat ass coach of the Dallas Cowboys isn't going anywhere. Crying face emoji, which fair. I think that's pretty much, the grade doesn't even matter.
Well, did you see? I was just reading an article during the commercial break about this. So I guess Jerry Jones really went out of his way after the game last night. As the teams are going into the locker room, he wanted to make sure that the Sunday Night Football crew caught him embracing McCarthy and giving him pats on the back and letting him know that he's overturned the culture of the team. And he I don't know if he immediately said it, but this article speaks about how Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons have all endorsed Mike McCarthy coming back. So all of a sudden, this narrative of Mike McCarthy has just completely done a 180 over the last 6 weeks or so. Look, for someone that's not a Cowboys fan, I don't mind it. They can keep toiling around with him. I don't think that's going to really move the needle in Dallas, but
Yeah, I mean, look, as a fan of the Commanders, I hope Mike McCarthy never leaves. But as just an objective observer of football, that's a bad idea. I think that the modern NFL has left Mike McCarthy clearly in the dust. And look, he has the locker room. The players do like him. It does seem like it. They do want to play for him. And they did, obviously. Losing Dak is going to cost you games. I don't care what anybody says. People talk about how average Dak is. Having a quarterback as consistently good as Dak is hard to get in the NFL. If you have a Dak Prescott, you keep the Dak Prescott, because it's just hard to find better than that consistently. So I don't have a problem with Dak being the guy that they invest all of this in. But I think there is a point where you got to overrule the players and go, okay, is this the guy that can get us to a Super Bowl? And he can't do that. He may be able to get you to the playoffs. He's done that before. Can he get you to a Super Bowl? I don't think that a Mike McCarthy coach team without a superstar at quarterback, a bona fide superstar at quarterback, can actually do that. So sorry about that, Beer Nuts. Really am. Slow-Mo Zo says, I give the Patriots a C. First-year head coach and first-year quarterback makes some signs of playing pretty good ball. Just got to get rid of those stupid mistakes. So he's not out on Mayo, and he's not out on May. But you are a little bit out on just the way that the team is playing right now. And I get that. I think that a lot of that too is they've just got to get rid of some of the players that aren't great. They need more talent on that roster. They need to surround Drake May with more weapons, and they need to make that defense more lethal, because there are parts of the defense that are seriously good. But it's not an even thing across the entire defense. Walter Mellon says, is this a case of Nurkic getting paid so he doesn't feel like he needs to try as hard? Is there any guaranteed money on that 20 mil? Well, it's an NBA contract, so it's all guaranteed.
Yeah, that's
the main issue with any NBA contract, is that you don't have to look too far to find a player that has money, that just got paid and is kind of just like, F you guys, I don't have to try that hard. I don't know if that's necessarily the case for Nurkic, because Nurkic did get paid prior to coming to the Suns. Like, this wasn't a contract that the Suns gave him.
He's currently on a contract that is based on essentially like the old CBA. So his cap hit for this season is $18.1 million. And then that goes up to $19.3 million next season. And next season is the last year on his contract. So in this case, what he's making compared to like what the market typically is on a starting center, like in the NBA, this is actually a pretty valuable contract. But then when you take into account the literal production that you're getting for what you're paying this guy, and then that's where, okay, this isn't really the best contract in the world. There's definitely more serviceable players that you could be paying, $18 million a season for, like, say, like a Tyus Jones, when he's going to be looking for, a pay raise after this season. So there's definitely better ways to implement, how you're going to utilize your salary cap. The silver lining in this is that, if we can't get rid of Nurkic this season, then he does become a better trading chip for next season when it is a expiring contract. Obviously, that doesn't do anything for a team that's looking to like win right now, win this season. So that's where I'd like to see us, maybe try and get a team to buy in on the fact that, hey, next season he could be a pretty good trade chip for you guys. And, maybe we trade him to someone like, I would be open to Washington. If we could turn him into Jonas Valanciunas, I think that's a win.
It would, yeah. And like the contract, because the Nurkic contract expires next year, Washington would be okay with that. Yeah, like they just want cap space and draft picks. That's the only thing that they want in this world. If you give them a guy with an expiring contract, I don't think that they're opposed to that. They're going to probably want to take something else from you, because that's how it's
usually how that goes. Probably going to cost us some kind of a draft pick or capital or something. So, and that's where, look, I mean, the Suns actually do have the freedom to potentially include, some kind of a 3-and-D wing player in this, because we do have a number of those on the roster already. So that's where, James Jones could get creative in how to package Nurkic with, another asset or two. and bring something back that we could really make some use out of. I mean, that is totally on the table at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. I do think that there's stuff that they can do. It's probably going to be closer to the trade deadline, just because I don't. It's not like anyone's clamoring for Jusuf Nurkic. So, it's going to be some team that wouldn't mind being a little bit pragmatic about things and going, yeah, we'll take your guy if you sweeten the pot with a pick, and we'll give you somebody nice, because the Wizards don't want to win games. I think that's the thing that makes them a good trade partner.
If the Hawks decided, hey, we're selling Entree, we're selling high, we're going full blown rebuild, Clint Capella
would be perfect.
That would be excellent
for what the Suns want to do, outside of obviously the shooting that Coach Bud would love every big man to be able to do. You just can't ask that of a lot of big men. You definitely can't ask that of Clint Capella. But as far as the guy's got a motor, he's going to move around, he's going to get to the basket. The pick and roll game is going to be alive again,
because he prioritizes offensive rebounds.
Yeah,
there's a lot to like about that.
He defends the rim, like all of the stuff that Nurkic did a year ago that he's not doing this year for reasons that no one is actually 100% certain on. But I don't think it's because he got paid. I just genuinely think, I don't know what happened, but I just genuinely think as of this year, he is that lazy. Like, that just is what it is. Beer Nut says, see the ass whipping I put up on the first place team. Dolphins kicker gave me 18 points. And yeah, he sent a screenshot of he just routed that team there. The Jaden Daniels 50-point game probably did a lot of heavy lifting for you, Beer Nuts. So at least you got something out of a commander. Hefty Lefty, come on. Hefty Lefty, come on, man. Really? Hefty Lefty says Dwight Howard is available. He'll try hard for every rebound. No, man. He's available, but there's a reason why he's available.
It's the same reason why, look, Markelle Fultz, he's available right now. Former #1 pick from 2017. Not even that far out. No one wants him. There's a reason why.
If you actually want to win basketball games and your center isn't playing well, maybe he's in a slump, maybe he just mentally something has shifted. I don't know what's going on with Nurkic. I'll be 100% honest. But your solution to that problem is to sign a 40-year-old Dwight Howard. You are out of your mind. You're out of your mind. He's 40. Dwight Howard is the same age as LeBron. But he's not. He hasn't looked like anything like prime Dwight Howard, or honestly, he didn't look like last year's LeBron, who is not in his prime. No. Dwight Howard is playing basketball in the Philippines for a reason. And that's because he's not good. We're not doing this, Hefty Lefty. He said, I thought he was available because it was the Taiwan League offseason. He might be available. He is 40.
Dwight Howard goes to Lakers games and sits next to Jeannie Buss for fun, and probably is like, Jeannie, come on, I'm not doing anything. Jeannie's like, I don't want you.
Yeah. She's probably nicer than that. She's probably like, yeah, we'll think about it. We'll talk about it. But she's definitely not thinking about it or talking about it. And that's the Lakers we're talking about. We're not exactly talking about the most well-oiled machine of an organization happening in Los Angeles. So why the hell do you think the Suns would do it is the real question. Hamilton Porter. Okay, you have a couple of texts. One is really good, and I want to save that for later. I don't want to change the subject just yet, because we're doing a little NBA hoops right now. But Hamilton Porter says, did you guys see the play where the Lions trolled the Bears with a fake fumble that went for a touchdown because the Packers did it earlier in the season unintentionally? Amazing. Oh no, Ben Johnson is that guy. Ben Johnson is that person. If he control you with an actual play that scores actual points, he'll do it. And he's done it 3 times this year. He did it to the Jaguars for no good reason, because they're the Jaguars. They didn't deserve that. And then he did it to the Cowboys just because the Cowboys ran the score up on
Jerry's birthday
last year. So Ben Johnson decided, yeah, I'm going to unload the entire playbook. And some of his plays are references to plays that other people run. He's having way too much fun doing his job. He's having so much more fun than anybody should be having. But Hamilton Porter, I'm going to save your other text. It's a college football text. We'll get to that one a little bit later on in the show, because I do want to get into that and talk about that some more. Hefty Lefty says, and Jeannie is dumb enough to sign him again. Clearly, she isn't, because he
It
does.
would have happened by now.
Yeah,
I mean, they already lost Jackson Hayes.
Yeah,
so.
he hangs out there, and she just won't do it. I'm saying even Jeannie Buss wouldn't do that. Even Jeannie Buss, like there has to be a line, and Dwight Howard hasn't looked like a superstar in this league in about 14 years. It's been about that long. And then you expect him to what? Show up at 40 and finally have it? There's no way. There's not a chance in hell. Slow Mozo says, didn't the Suns just get rid of a lazy center? Yes, actually. They traded the old lazy center for this lazy center who wasn't lazy when they got him, but for some reason is lazy this season, and I don't get it. Unless there's some nagging injury that he has that I am just unfamiliar with, I don't understand it myself. But yeah, the Suns did just get rid of a lazy center. Time is a flat circle. So we're going to get to the other NBA games going on, because the Suns are going to take on the Nuggets. We'll start there, and then we'll look around the National Basketball Association for today, as the basketball games kind of give us a little bit of a primer for the basketball that's going to be happening on Christmas, which is a big deal for me. I know some of you will be watching the NFL on Christmas. I'm going to be watching the NBA because that's what I do, and I don't like to change my traditions because I'm getting up there. I'm getting to that point in my life. You get to like your mid 30s, and it's just like, no, I like my traditions.
I don't like change.
I don't want to change any of my traditions. my girlfriend's like, hey, you want to get like a real Christmas tree this year? And I'm like, I like the fake Christmas tree. It's the Christmas tree we always have. Why do I
Less
want
hassle?
Yeah, it's just like you fold the thing up, you take off all the branches, you put it in the box. You don't have to think about it for another year. This, I have to find a tree that's pretty good. You got to set it up. You got to make sure the cats don't play with all the ornaments. Like, why go through all that? You know what I mean? That's why do that? Anyway, we'll get to the NBA coming up right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
The Fanatic is your home for fall football. Catch the NFL and NCAA live games on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365.
At Diamond Dave's Desert Wholesale Diamond,
We offer incredible diamonds, both mined and cultivated, all at amazingly low prices.
check out these cultivated lab-grown diamond earrings.
2 carats total weight, collection color and lab grown, only $25.90.
And she'd love this amazing tennis bracelet in natural mind.
4 carats total weight in yellow or white gold, only $39.90.
And how about this diamond chain in cultivated?
12.5 carats total weight, collection color and lab grown, only $79.90.
And last but not least, especially this year, 1.5 carat floating diamond pendant.
Collection color and lab grown, only $9.90.
Call, email, or message us for an in-person appointment.
Or sit back and relax for free FedEx shipping anywhere in the USA.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450. That's 480-397-2450. Or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave Cantor. That's at Diamond Dave, Kantor.
Hear that? The sound of your antique fountain pen gliding across linen paper as you journal in the park. And if you were here, you'd be inspired by the warm breeze. But you're not here. Your self-care happens out on the road, riding your motorcycle protected by Progressive. And the wind in your face on the road is all the inspiration you need. So if you ride, get a quote and see if you could save with Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Now that's inspiring. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Forte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, Forte. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
we're back. The Daily Blender right here on 1580. The Fanatic, the hefty lefty on the text line. Get off my lawn, NFL. Keon Rose. I'm right there with you, by the way. Yeah, no, I do not want the NFL on Christmas, and everyone keeps telling me, because I like it when people tell me what I am actually going to do and what I actually think. Oh, you'll watch it. It's the NFL. You'll watch it. I would watch it if my team was playing on Christmas. Yeah, like my team. I will not be watching the Chiefs and the Steelers on Christmas. I will watch it later. I'll be watching basketball on Christmas, and the Christmas Day games are going to be really, really fun. And there's that one random Christmas Day NBA game that just sucks. And that game is pretty great because it's just at the perfect time. You've eaten a lot of Christmas dinner and you don't really want to watch the game anyway, because you're starting to fall asleep. It's kind of nap time. And right when you're looking for that, you get 76ers and Celtics. Lovely.
Sign me up.
The 76ers are not competing for anything against the Boston Celtics. That's at 3 p.m. That's perfect. Try and time out Christmas dinner so that you wind up watching that game, or rather the game ends up watching me while I fall asleep on the couch. Perfect. And I feel this way, by the way, if the NBA were to try and do Thanksgiving. No, that's not your day.
I swear to God, if Joel Embiid ducks out of that game, I will throw something.
Yeah, but also, would you be surprised?
No, but I mean, I would still be frustrated, right? I mean, like, when you put the Sixers and the Celtics together, you don't envision that matchup without the All-Stars. And time again, and this is probably one of the things that is plaguing the NBA's TV viewership this year. I don't know if you've seen, there's been some articles coming out on that recently. It's like way down, and that's significant because the NBA just, signed a brand new TV rights deal where, when things are down, it, makes it look like, in the perspective of Amazon and who else do they sign with? Disney. I mean, these guys, it's kind of like they're not getting as good of a deal because the viewership that they were expecting isn't coming in. And I think something that, the league just has to figure out, but it's so difficult to police, is, when teams are, last minute just scratching their best players. Oh, mystery illness. Yeah, sorry, we meant to put it on the past injury report. We forgot.
Our bad.
And I'll give you another one to look out to tonight. This is something I was mentioning in Beat the Book before, but in the Suns and Nuggets game, you've got a Nuggets team that played in overtime last night in New Orleans, and their two best players, Jokic and Jamal Murray, both played over 40 minutes. So now, second night of a back-to-back, these guys fly back to Denver to play a pared down Suns team at home. They know Devin Booker's not going to be a part of this one. And they also are going to play the Suns again on Wednesday, when they then have to pick up and fly to Phoenix for, the Christmas Day game. So, if you're Denver, I think you're trying to do, as much as you can to win. But lo and behold, the afternoon injury report came out. All of a sudden, Jamal Murray, ankle sprain, he's questionable. And it would just not be surprising at all to see Denver do a little bit of load management here, probably give Murray the night off. If Jokic does end up playing, then he's going to get at least one day of rest tomorrow before he goes on Wednesday. But perhaps Jokic is maybe playing a little bit lighter minutes tonight in advance of, the big primetime TV spot on Wednesday for Christmas Day, because, that's where the NBA wants to see you not making excuses for your guys and putting everything out on the floor. So there is a priority in terms of, I want to give my guys a little bit more rest. They played a little bit more yesterday than, we were intending, but they got us the win. The Suns aren't bringing their full team into this. Maybe we can still win without our best stuff. The Suns did just lose to the Pistons. So, that's where, from Denver's perspective, there's definitely some incentive tonight, and them trying to get at least one of their two, best players, a night off.
Especially Murray, because I think he is legitimately dinged up a little bit. Before we get into that game a little bit more, the historian says, he sent a meme that says, "Dear Santa, I would like a new birthday suit this year. My current one is old, wrinkled, and sagging." He then also added, "And I need a larger size. This one is shrunk." So the Santa, hook him up. I'm not exactly on a first name basis with the big fella. Slow-Mo Zoe says, not a big follower of NBA, maybe watch a few games. Is there anybody like a Dennis Rodman in the league nowadays? First off, I don't think there will be another Dennis Rodman. I think Dennis Rodman was just genuinely a defensive and rebounding genius. But in terms of somebody that plays with the same intensity and same fire, does anybody stand out to you? Because I mean, Draymond's aging, so it just isn't him anymore.
I feel kind of weird about putting this name out there, but like Jalen Duren on the Pistons, he's kind of an undersized big man, but very, very motivated rebounder, like specifically rebounds. And I think he is someone that kind of emphasizes his defense more than his offense. But, Dennis is one of a kind. I mean, the kind of stat lines you were getting out of Dennis Rodman, you don't see that stuff from people today.
0 points, 20 rebounds.
Right. And like 8 blocks,
right.
Like
just
something.
Just like he's a complete non-factor on the offensive side of the floor, but what he's giving you in defense and rebounding is so absurd. It almost doesn't matter. In fact, not almost, it didn't matter. But I remember I was watching, I forget who it was. There was, I think it was, Isaiah Thomas was talking about when Dennis was with the Pistons, and they would do the layup line, and then it would change from layups to jump shots, and then it would be you'd work your way out to the 3-point line. And he was saying that Dennis would never do the layup line. Like, he'd stop halfway and then just start watching the ball. And so Isaiah's like, well, what are you doing? Like, why don't you get back out there and go through this with us? And he's like, I'm counting the spins on the ball. When you shoot it, it spins 3 times. When he shoots it, it spins 4 times. Like, there's no more Dennis Rodman. This is what my point is. That is how his brain worked at the thing that he was doing. There isn't anybody else wired like that. I don't think. Like, you can have the intensity. Like, I think Jeremy Sohan with the Spurs is just fun to watch because he's just all heart. He's just out there defending his ass off. Like, it just, no matter what. Marcus Smart is also a very intense defender. He's just locked in all the time. Drew Holiday.
OG Anunoby.
OG Anunoby is another really good one. Like, there's some great defenders in the NBA and guys who are just willing to try and get the ball and stop you from scoring at all costs. But Dennis was a genius, man. Like, he was just seeing the game in a way nobody else in the history of the sport has ever looked at this game. So let's shift gears back to the Suns and the Nuggets tonight, because can the Suns bounce back to win this game? They are, I believe, it's basically a pick 'em. They're 1-point dogs right now, but this is a game that seems winnable, not just because of what you said before with the potential holding out of Murray or Jokic, probably Murray, but also because the Nuggets haven't been up to their same standard defensively that they've been in the past.
No, yeah, this Nuggets team is not the same kind of polished Nuggets team that we've had in years past. They are trying to establish somewhat of a new identity, just considering the influx of youth that their lineup has had this year. There's no more Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. There's no more Reggie Jackson. They're seeing guys, have to step up that weren't, necessarily a part of their typical roster rotation over the last couple of seasons. So, I'm talking about guys like Christian Brown, like Julian Strother, Hunter Tyson. These are the more unfamiliar names, and these guys are growing. And, then they've got, the absolute best basketball player in the world in Nikola Jokic, who, is doing a very good job in trying to set those guys up for success. But again, it's just not the same kind of polished system with the same personnel that this Nuggets team was used to, that they made, a run and, won an NBA championship with. So just the growing pains from Denver, it's very apparent. But they have been able to string together 4 wins out of their last 5 games. Those wins came against the Hawks, the Clippers, the Kings, the Trailblazers, and the Pelicans. So no one really, very elite, no one, that stellar, of a team, but they are winning the games that they are supposed to be winning. And you look at the Suns, and the Suns are kind of doing the opposite of that right now. Granted, we're dealing with some more significant injuries than Denver is. But looking at this specific game tonight, the Suns have a bit of an edge when it comes to rest, and that could, be evident on the court. But there's still something to account for in this game being in Denver. You're playing in elevation. That's not easy. I mean, there's literally players in this league that avoid playing games in Denver altogether, like Joel Embiid, because they just don't even want the optics of, seeing what their game looks like in the elevation. And I think that could come into play for the Suns here. But the absolute biggest factor is just going to be, which Denver Nuggets players take the court tonight. And if Jamal Murray is not there, I think Phoenix has a chance between, Denver missing a significant piece of their offense. And then, with the turnover from playing yesterday, that could be too much for them to overcome. Something that has been pretty apparent is that in games where Jamal Murray is not playing, Denver is struggling defensively. And even in some of these games that they just played recently, where, yes, they were winning, but Denver gave up 129 points to the Kings. They gave up 126 points to the Trailblazers, and then they gave up 129 points to the Pelicans.
That's the damning one right there. The Pelicans, for as good as they have been able to kind of hang around in some of these games, look, that's not an offensive unit that's striking fear into anybody's hearts. For them to be able to do that to Denver tells us, I think, where Denver is defensively. Yeah.
Now, if Jokic ends up playing, I think a lot of Denver's offense is actually going to go through Jokic. He has been stringing together triple doubles lately, but when you don't have Jamal Murray on the floor and you're losing out on the ability to rack up assists to Murray, I think that becomes a little bit problematic for the angle of betting on Jokic to get a triple double. Whereas if you look at his line for points, I mean, it's right at 30.5. And I mean, he's going to be a shoe-in for 30. I mean, if you think about what he's going to be facing, the way Nurkic is struggling getting up and down the court, I'm assuming Plumlee's probably going to spend the most amount of time guarding him.
He has to, because Nurkic is getting obliterated out there by people not anywhere near as good as Nikola Jokic. Jokic, by the way, is averaging 30 points a game. He is averaging just about a triple-double. He is 0.2 of an assist short of just averaging a triple-double straight up.
Second in the league right now in points at 30.9 per game, third in the league in rebounds with 13 rebounds per game, and second in the league in assists at 9.8 assists per game. So, I mean, Jokic is still Jokic. Whether or not Murray is going to be there, that will dictate how much they're going to need to turn to him on offense. In that game against Portland, where they actually lost to Portland, Jokic had 34 points. In the game against the Hawks, where they defeated the Hawks by 30 points, and Trae Young did not play in that game. So, got to definitely take that with a grain of salt. But Jokic had 48 points. So, the teams that don't have the very strongly defensive, minded big men, those are the teams that Jokic really is just going to take advantage of. And unfortunately, I think he's going to have a situation like that against the Suns tonight.
So would it be fair to say tonight would be a solid night to try for a Jokic triple-double bet?
I would say,
if you can take your Suns fan hat off for just a second.
Well, no, it's not so much that.
Okay.
It's boiling down to whether or not Jamal Murray's going to play.
Right.
And that's the part.
Okay.
If Jamal Murray plays,
yes. Okay.
Yes, absolutely triple double. If Jamal Murray is ruled out, I would bet more on Jokic to be that offensive primary scorer.
Right. And then you're going north of 30. If the line's at 30.5, then you're saying, he can get 33, 34, and that's what he's going to need for them to even really be in the ball game.
Now, another name to keep an eye on in terms of player props for someone on the Nuggets it's actually Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon right now, his line on rebounds is sitting at 5.5. He's had 6 or more rebounds in his last 4 straight games. That is definitely a line that I would recommend taking the over on. It's showing at minus 132 odds right now on FanDuel. But even if you wanted to take Aaron Gordon to score, his line is very low, 13.5. And we know that we're not getting the greatest paint protection right now out of this, Suns roster that, we've been seeing over the last 2-4 games. So that's another spot where a guy like Gordon, who can hit corner 3-pointers, or he can, do a shot fake and then be really dangerous on the drive. That's another guy that I think, the Suns defense is going to be very focused on Jokic, especially if Jamal Murray's not playing. And that's where you're going to see a guy like Aaron Gordon get a lot of open looks.
So those are the betting opportunities that are out there, just in case you want to know. We've got more NBA talk, and we're going to wrap this thing up. Dylan's got some big games going on tonight that he's interested in. There are a lot of games. We're not going through all the games, okay? Nobody gives a damn about the Wizards playing the Thunder. Like, nobody cares. So we're going to find the games that are good, talk about those. Then we'll get to a little bit of college football talk, and then wrap this bad boy up right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
The Fanatic is your home for fall football. Catch the NFL and NCAA live games on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365.
This message comes from Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort. Journey through the heart of Europe on an elegant Viking longship with thoughtful service, destination-focused dining, and cultural enrichment on board and on shore. With small ships that bring travelers closer to the destination, there's more time to explore. And every Viking voyage is all-inclusive, with no children and no casinos. Learn more at Viking.com.
Gain a global perspective and specialized skills that many of today's top employers are seeking with an MBA from University of Maryland Global Campus. Study online and complete your degree in just 16 months for about $21K. Choose from MBA specializations in global business, marketing, HR, finance, and more. Classes start January 8th. Apply now and save with no application fee. Learn more at umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by Chef.
They're gonna go nuts when he hits this thing.
It went in. The People's Open is back. See the PGA Tour's best tee it up at the 2025 WM Phoenix Open, February 3rd through the 9th at TPC Scottsdale. Get tournament and ticket info at WMPhoenixOpen.com. WMPhoenixOpen.com.
It's fall football season, and Kasai Japanese Steakhouse is doubling down. Now with 2 Valley locations. When it comes to Asian cuisine, no one does it better and more authentic than Kasai, where talented Teppan chefs create the food, the fire, and the fun of teppanyaki. Kasai Japanese Steakhouse isn't just dinner, it's dinnertainment. A memorable dining experience where a delicious 7-course meal is prepared right at your table with flair. It's a perfect choice for celebrations, date nights, or a night on the town. Choose from over 30 different items and combinations of teppanyaki, Asian fusion, and innovative sushi. Happy hour is always on fire and offered daily with specials on their Asian-inspired comfort food like Korean steak tacos, Mongolian barbecue ribs, and signature Wagyu beef sliders. Always a memorable dinner, or catch the game and a bite at the bar at Kasai. Now with 2 locations, Scottsdale Road in Thunderbird, and in Peoria at the 101 in Northern. Go to KasaiTeppan.com. That's KASAI Teppan.com, or search Kasai on your mobile phone.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
Download the Fanatic app. News, scores, social media updates, and more on your smartphone, on your tablet. The free Fanatic app, available at the Google Play Store or the App Store, and at 1580thefanatic.com.
And we're back, going through some of the NBA games tonight, and we just talked Suns, Nuggets. Not feeling particularly great about where the Suns are landing in all of this. They do not look like they're headed in the right direction, and you're not playing with Devin Booker, and I don't even know what Grayson Allen's status is. I know he's dealing with the concussion. Like
he's not playing tonight.
Yeah, the Suns are shorthanded. But the upside here is potentially so are the Nuggets. And so there is an outside chance that the Suns could get this thing done. By the way, the line quickly moving away from the Phoenix Suns was at +1 It is now minus 405 in favor of the Denver Nuggets. So I do think that a lot of people are getting that sense that this is just not going to be a night for the Phoenix Suns. So when we're taking a look around what else is happening, there are some very, very good matchups going on around the league. We'll throw out some of the trash, the Wizards and Thunder. We can throw that away. I don't think anybody wants to talk about that. We can probably chuck the Raptors and the Knicks as well. I don't think anybody wants to talk about that. But where are you looking, DC? Because I just think that I'm interested in this this Celtics and Magic game, for instance, but there's some other ones out there. What are you looking for?
So my number one game, actually, it's the San Antonio Spurs at the Philadelphia 76ers. And let me explain why here.
Because we did spend a not unusual amount of time bashing Joel Embiid earlier today. So let's run it.
Let's start right there. First and foremost, it is confirmed Joel Embiid is not on the injury report. He is playing tonight.
Interesting.
So Victor Wembanyama also looks ready to go tonight. There's no word about him potentially sitting for any reason. And this is going to be the second ever matchup between Victor Wembanyama and Joel Embiid. So why is this important? Well, a couple of reasons. First off, if you think back to last season, the very first time that these guys got to play against each other, it was a historic night. Wemby had an incredible game for a rookie center going up against who at the time seemingly was the absolute best center in the game. So you got to really kind of see those two, stack up against each other and see how they compared. And on the one hand, Victor Wembanyama had a huge game. He had 33 points. He shot 10 of 19 field goals, and he had 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, 11 of 12 free throws. He hit a couple of threes. So it was a pretty big game for him. But if you guys recall, Joel Embiid in that same game, he had a franchise record for points for the Sixers. He scored 70 points. He grabbed 18 rebounds, also added a steal, a block. He took 41 shots that game. So if you think back to this, the Sixers were really trying to some extent, kind of make an example out of Wemby. There was a lot of hype. Everyone believes Wemby is the future. They wanted to leverage their big man playing at the top of his game, going up against Wemby to remind him, of the pecking order. And that's exactly what happened. The Sixers won the game. Embiid has that historic night. Now, the next thing that comes into play here is the Olympics. If you recall, in the Olympics, Victor Wembanyama led Team France to the gold medal round against Team USA, who was led by LeBron and Steph Curry. But the starting center for that American team
was it this guy named Joel Embiid,
who completely spurned the French team. Joel Embiid could have played for France. He has dual citizenship.
In fact, they expected him to. That was one of the things with the French national team was they were upset with. There were 2 teams that were upset. The Joel Embiid, obviously, and France, and then apparently Paolo Banchero could have played for Italy. Chose not to do that.
So, you've got some kind of weird emotions from that because if you're Wemby, this guy didn't want to play with you on your team. Then you matched up against him in the gold medal round and you came away as a loser and you've got a bad taste in your mouth between both of these things. And Victor Wembanyama is very prideful in whatever he does. He's got big goals for himself. He wants to be the best. I believe this game has been circled on Wemby's calendar for quite some time. I don't think he appreciated having 70 points dropped on him when the Sixers and the Spurs got to play again last season after that first matchup. Embiid did not play. So Wemby did not get to face him again. He still had a very big game in that second matchup, but now he finally gets his next crack at Joel Embiid. And if you look at Joel Embiid, this is where I do want to exercise some caution because I'm not throwing out the fact that he had 70 points the last time he played Wembanyama to convince you to bet on Joel Embiid tonight.
Because that would be crazy if you've looked at anything that Joel Embiid has done this season, almost a couple of games here and there, but almost nothing that he's done this year would suggest that he is anywhere near 70-point good as Joel Embiid.
We don't know what exactly we have on our hands right now with Joel Embiid. He is coming off a 34-point game against the Charlotte Hornets, but that game was at home. Much of the Hornets starting roster did not play, including their starting center, Mark Williams. So that 34 points came against primarily Nick Richards, the backup center for the Charlotte Hornets.
You know who Nick Richards is? You probably don't. if you're listening and driving around the city of Phoenix, I can't imagine any good reason why you would know who Nick Richards is, which is the point.
So, you have to look at that and you have to really contextualize that 34 points because, I mean, Embiid has had numerous 30-point games already this season for, how little he's played. But what's happened every single time pretty much that he scores 30 is he either doesn't play for a while after that, or he plays and he gets like 11 points or 12 points. So that might happen tonight. What is consistent that you can count on is Victor Wembanyama's desire to have a huge game. And you take a look at Wemby and how he has been producing lately, and he has been playing some of his best basketball of the season over his last 5-10 games. So he's really hitting his stride. He's coming off a 30-point, 10-block game against the Portland Trail Blazers at home. Prior to that, he scored 42 points in a game against the Atlanta Hawks. He's got, other games of 28 and 25 so far this month. He had a 34-point game this month. So you take a look at the line right now for Victor Wembanyama's points, and this is, to me, one of the absolute best opportunities in terms of placing a sports bet today. Victor Wembanyama, his line on points over under 23.5. He's got 4 25-point plus games out of his last 5. And he's going to be motivated going up against Joel Embiid, possibly even a lesser version of Joel Embiid compared to what, he's matched up with in the past. So this is a huge opportunity to back Victor Wembanyama on points. If you're someone that likes to bet on defensive metrics, Wemby is also someone that would be great to consider for getting blocks. You take a look at his last 3 games. He has 21 blocks in his last 3 games. So, I mean, if you want to take the guy to get 4 blocks tonight, that's paying, right, very close to even money. That's a great bet that you can look to leverage and build your parlay with.
Yeah, looks like a fun time. And like just watching Victor Wembanyama, I mean, the guy's averaging 25 and 10 this season. He is like no other second-year player that I think I've ever watched in my life. The way that he seems to be getting the game, picking it up. The NBA game can be tough for a lot of big players to get in and kind of understand what their role is on a team. Wemby's already got that. He already understands what he's doing. I do think that having Chris Paul on that team has helped him out a lot, just because Chris Paul, at least the pick and roll game, like, this is what my role is. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I like where Victor Wembanyama is, but he's still got like another level he can reach. And that is fun to watch. And if you could make some money off of it, well, why not go ahead? So that is, I think, that's your best game of the night. What other game should we keep an eye out for here? Because there's still a few that are really interesting. Bucks Bulls got a little less interesting because Giannis wasn't going to be there, and we know that he just always erupts against the Bulls. But is that one worth looking at either?
It is. So up front, very disappointing news. Giannis got ruled out of the Bucks and the Bulls matchup, and if you happen to listen to Keon and I on Beat the Book, something that I'm a huge advocate for is taking Giannis to have very big scoring games anytime he plays the Bulls. That is a trend that has just lasted for years. It's something that's generally very dependable, but unfortunately Giannis is not playing. So this is going to be Giannis's second straight game of being held out. He has a non-COVID illness right now, and there is still something that you can do to bank on someone being very productive in this game. It's actually betting on Bobby Portis. So for the Bucks right now, Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo both are out. So offensively, the Bucks are going to be turning to some different faces for those shots on the offensive end. Chris Middleton is playing, but Chris Middleton in kind of a weird place, still coming back from being injured, hasn't really shown those big all-star-esque performances, that he was doing constantly before he went down with his injuries. And
which makes all the sense in the world, by the way. Like, he just missed so much time that you don't get to miss 40 plus games and then come back and just be the same guy you were before you got hurt. He's clearly working his way back to it. You do see flashes of it on individual plays where you're like, that's the Chris Middleton I know. But I think it's going to be a little bit before we get the version of Chris Middleton that just can take over a ball game that we saw, in the finals even a few years ago.
Now on the Bulls side, Josh Giddey is going to be out due to a right ankle sprain. Lonzo Ball also going to be missing the game due to an illness. So you do have some impact players, out for the Bulls. They're still going to have Zach LaVine. They're still going to have Nikola Vucevic. But Bobby Portis is a guy that steps up historically when Giannis cannot play. And the last game that the Bucks played in, it was at home against Washington. And Bobby Portis, 34 points, 8 assists, 10 rebounds. And that's a version of Bobby Portis that you tend to get when he becomes like the next lead scoring option behind Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So this game, very good conditions for taking the over on Bobby Portis's points. Right now, that line is sitting at 22.5. He could very well put up 30 plus on these guys. At the very least, I would take him for the over on 22.5. But Bobby Portis right now for a 30 plus point game, it's paying about 3.5 to 1 on FanDuel. So, if you're someone that's trying to, really give yourself a sizable payout, that is not very far-fetched at all for Bobby Portis to have another 30-point game, just considering all the players that are not going to be playing in that Bucks and Bulls matchup. One other game that...
And by the way, just one more thing with the Bobby Portis, the Wizards are one of the worst defensive teams when it comes to opponent field goals made, which contributed to Bobby Portis having that night that he did. They are third from last. Chicago is last.
So there you go.
So that's just putting that out there.
It's generally a good thing to bet on guys over on points when they're up against the worst defensive teams. And the long shot parlay that we hit from Beat the Book last week, that came on a day where we were taking guys to score against teams that were the worst in the league at defense. So another great thing to point out there, Keon. I would definitely look at taking Bobby Portis's points tonight.
So that's going to do it for the NBA talk. We've got some football to get to. I don't know if you know, there's a Monday Night Football game on tonight. Saints, Packers. We never promised it would be good, but, maybe we'll give you some betting angles to maybe make the game a little bit more interesting for you. We'll talk about that. And Hamilton Porter had a college football question that I've shelved until, the other side of this break. It's coming up right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
It's fall football on the Fanatic. Catch all the live game play-by-play, Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday day and night NFL games, plus the Saturday NCAA football game of the week. It's all right here on the Valley's home for football. 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. An important message about your timeshare from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. Contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance, and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about timeshare cancellation.
Call 800-761-0000. 800-761-0000.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
Do you lay awake at night worrying about what to buy everyone on your holiday list? Yeah, it's stressful. And half the time you don't even get the right thing. Well, Skechers is here for a holiday rescue with hands-free Skechers slip-ins, the right gift for everyone on your list. Think about it. People love their shoes. And once they try hands-free Skechers slip-ins, it takes that love to a whole new level. Why? Because with hands-free Skechers slip-ins, you just step into them and they're on. There's no bending down, no touching your shoes, no retying laces. Plus, Skechers slip-ins are perfect for everyone. Moms, dads, grandparents, kids, friends, coworkers. Just sneak into their closet, get their shoe size, and you're good to go. Plus, they come in everyone's favorite styles and colors, from sneakers to casual shoes, even winter boots. And they look so stylish, and they're the most comfortable shoes they'll ever wear. So, this season, save time, quit your worrying, and get everyone on your list hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Holiday crisis averted. Now go get some rest. Find them for the holidays at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
The GCU men's basketball squad is coming off their winningest season in 35 years, their third trip to the NCAA tournament in 4 years, and their first ever NCAA tournament victory. Returning 4 of their 5 starters in Ray Harrison, Colin Moore, Duke Brennan, and reigning WAC Player of the Year Tyon Grant Foster, the Lopes look to defend their WAC titles and make a run to the Sweet 16. With a non-conference slate including Stanford, Georgia, and crosstown rival Arizona State, you won't want to miss a moment of the action. So join me, Michael Potter, and Lopes insider Paul Coro all season long right here on the home of the Lopes, 1580 The Fanatic. Lopes up.
Snakes,
Zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand, when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Fountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
It's time for the third hour.
All right, people, settle down because it's time.
For what? Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it.
And welcome back. It is the final, half hour of the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic. For those of you who are out and about getting your Christmas shopping done, this is one of the most dangerous days of the year on the road. Stay safe. We need all the listeners we can get. Just throwing that out there as well. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm Keon Rose. Alongside me is our betting expert in the building, Dylan Cohen. We are broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios, and you are on the text line, 888-368-1580. You know how that goes. But I've been sitting on a college football question that Hamilton Porter asked, forever ago, and we're going to get to it. But during the break, Dylan alerted me to some news that is absolutely going to change the college football playoff, at least on some level, because Georgia, them dogs, losing their starting quarterback. Carson Beck is out. He had foot surgery, according to Peter Thamel of CBS Sports. He underwent his surgery successfully. It was on his right elbow to repair his UCL. So baseball injury right there. Tommy John surgery. The surgery was performed by renowned orthopedic Dr. Neil Elatrache in Los Angeles. It's good. Everything's fine, but Carson Beck will be returning next year in college football. He will not be returning this year. Well, maybe he's returning for the NFL draft, but he's not playing any more college football for this season, which means I had to do a little jumping around. I jumped to the depth chart for the Georgia Bulldogs, posted on ourlads.com because they keep that thing updated, and they've got a pretty in-depth depth chart, no pun intended. And the quarterback up next for the Georgia Bulldogs would be Gunnar Stockton, who has played not a whole lot of college football. He threw the ball 19 times last year. He threw it 32 times this year. Pretty accurate, to be fair. 78% of those passes completed, but for a full 200 yards, no touchdowns and an interception. So he just doesn't have an awful lot of experience, and now he's in a position where he will be representing the University of Georgia, a team that has quite frankly struggled to run the football up to the standards that they've had in the past. And now they're going to have to go out there and take on Notre Dame. And they don't have Carson Beck out there, who, even at the best of times was a pretty inconsistent quarterback. Carson Beck had his highs, he had his lows. But I think you were hoping for one of those high moments of a game with Carson Beck. I don't know what you're going to get with Gunnar Stockton.
This is really bizarre, like from a betting perspective, because according to, and this would have been the odds at ESPN Bet, when this line opened for the game, Notre Dame was favored, 1.5 point favorite. And I'm comparing this now to a line with a different book, so take it with a grain of salt. But right now on FanDuel, Georgia is currently a 1.5 point favorite, minus 125 on the money line, despite, this news, being out there. Now, Notre Dame did have an impact injury as well, but it came to one of their defensive linemen, Riley Mills. He's been ruled out for the remainder of the CFP. So if odds makers are kind of looking at that and trying to kind of like balance it out, I mean, that's already a really difficult game to even play. I don't even want to get into that, but I mean, your quarterback, I mean, that is a very impactful position to now all of a sudden, make the kind of change that you're going to have to make. in this stage of the postseason. And I mean, you take a look at, kind of where they are in the bracket here. And I mean, if Georgia is able to beat Notre Dame, they're going to get the winner of Boise State and Penn State. The kind of unfortunate thing in this is that, and this is probably its own other argument, but the side of the bracket, the other side that has, the Rose Bowl and the Peach Bowl, and then the winner of that playing, like, so much significantly better, isn't it? Oh my God.
That is an issue that needs to be addressed. And this actually does set up for Hamilton Porter's question that he asked pretty damn well. Because Hamilton Porter is kind of like me in that I think the playoff is too big. We have too many teams competing for national titles that have no business competing for national titles. Now, what he said is going to tick off some Sun Devil fans. So I'm just giving you your trigger warning, as the kids say. You're going to need it, because if you're a Sun Devil fan, this criticism is going to probably hit a little bit close. He says, things we learned this weekend. Number one, there is the Big Ten, there is the SEC, and then there is everybody else. The playoff should be capped at 8. Auto bids clearly don't work. Teams like Indiana, Clemson, SMU, and soon to be Boise State, Notre Dame, and ASU have no business playing for a national title. I am so happy for you, ASU fans, and your storybook season. But let's not pretend like Texas isn't going to break off a foot in their asses on New Year's Day. So these are the words of Hamilton Porter, not me. Do not direct this at me, Sun Devil fans. I am a Longhorn fan. I do think that my team is going to win. I have said nothing about breaking off feet in asses. Just to be clear, that is not me. Do not send that smoke my way. I will not appreciate it. So I agree with Hamilton Porter to an extent. There is a level where, like, Clemson throughout the season proved that they're not a team that you should have competing for a national title. And I just think that, like, the schedule that SMU played, I think everybody knew that schedule was a weak schedule, and I like SMU. I thought that they had a magical year in their own right, but the schedule they played was weaker than most. And I'm sure there's some salty BYU fan somewhere going, well, see, we should have gotten in. Like, no, not you either. You also lost the game that should have been your playoff game that would have gotten you in. If you handled your business versus ASU, you'd be there.
Or Kansas.
You didn't. That's on you. That's your team. Because the regular season and the playoff in college football have historically been the same thing. You lose 2 games, 3 games, like, you're done. You are done. So what we're having here this particular season with this expanded playoff is now more teams in the mix. Teams feel like they have hope. But college football isn't the NFL. It doesn't work anything like the NFL. You can't sit there and make it so that everybody feels like they have hope. 12 teams getting into a playoff is not parity, because the same giant schools that squash everybody are going to show up and squash everybody. Only we're doing it with extra steps.
From a business standpoint, to make the college football playoff relevant for a significantly larger population of people, like, that's not a bad thing. To me, what this kind of speaks to is this argument of, well, did the CFP just, completely whiff on, who these at-large teams were supposed to be? And, like, could there have been more competitive matchups versus, all the right teams got in there, and what you saw was, A, there just being kind of a difference in the tier of talent, and B, the impact of having home field advantage. And I really think that the home field advantage element is not being played up enough in this. If Clemson and Texas didn't happen in Texas, if that happened at, like, a truly, truly neutral site, I think Texas still wins.
But do they win by 2 touchdowns?
Right. I mean, I think you'd see a tighter game. You look at Indiana and Notre Dame. If that one was not at Notre Dame, and, like, let's just say it was, like, in a dome somewhere completely neutral, or you know what, not even a dome, whatever. Like, to me, the home field advantage element is just going completely unaccounted for. And
in a sport like college football, where it's more important than in most sports. Like in the NFL, like home field advantage matters, but it's like more of a weather advantage. Like when you look at the numbers, the home team doesn't win significantly more than the road team in the NFL. In college, though, that home field advantage, I don't want to say it's everything, but it does play a significant factor at the college level in a way that it doesn't at the pro level. So I think it's absolutely huge. I agree.
So, and then there is kind of the other piece to that, which is like some of these teams are just a cut above, and it truly like doesn't even matter. You could have had Ole Miss in there. You could have had Alabama in there. You could have had BYU or Colorado. And either of those teams, I don't think they're really making a dent on Texas. I don't think they're really making a dent on Ohio State. Like there is a divide somewhere in this. Now, like Penn State, beating SMU by 28. I don't think they necessarily deserve to be 10+ point favorites over Boise State. Like I think Boise State could honestly give them, a bit of a challenge. Oregon and Ohio State. I don't think anyone is worried about that game being, too one-sided in either direction. Notre Dame and Georgia is going to be interesting, and it could be one-sided, in favor of Notre Dame if we're just thinking that the Georgia quarterback that's going to be in isn't going to, be up to par. But at that point, it's not a matter of not getting two, competitive teams in there. That there's a significant injury that's driving that. And then that brings me to Texas and Arizona State. 14-point spread, which is huge. That's bigger than any spread that we saw in the first round. And I think the driver in this is going to be the neutral site. If you're Arizona State and you want to back the Sun Devils, I wouldn't want the Sun Devils to be like coddled in this position. Like the absolute best version that you're going to get out of ASU is going to be the one that is counted out, that is overlooked, that is just considered the heaviest underdog possible. And those are the narratives that are emerging right now versus Texas. And Cam Scadaboo and Kenny Dillingham, they have both been very vocal about the fact that this team wants to play Texas. They've got many guys that are from Texas, have family in Texas. They've got guys that are from Georgia that, have family in that area. And to have the game played in Atlanta is actually a good thing because it's going to motivate all these guys to do well in front of their friends and family. Now, that only goes so far when you're playing a team as talented as Texas. And I'm not saying all this trying to advocate, for the Sun Devils to win, but I expect them to give Texas hell at the very least. And I would expect them to be within a 10-point range on the overall score.
Yeah, because I think that ASU is up there as one of the best rushing attacks that the Longhorns are going to see all year. They just got finished choking out Clemson. Clemson doesn't have a Cam Scadaboo. I think we're having a very different conversation if they did. So I don't want to discount that factor and be like what the rest of the national media does with ASU, where you just pretend that Cam Scadaboo isn't literally the juggernaut playing football, or
they just flash the U of A logo instead.
Yeah, just
while
mistakenly
they're
do that.
ASU.
Yeah. Or to pretend like Sam Levitt isn't a good quarterback, because like last week, I have like real problems with how consistent Cade Klubnik can be for Clemson. Klubnik played a really good game last week against the Texas defense that usually doesn't give up air yards like that. And I've seen Sam Levitt play this year. I saw him play in person earlier this year. The guy's legit. The guy can spin it. The guy knows how to move around the pocket. He knows when it's time to leave the pocket and try and make things happen with his legs, whether that's extending plays, whether that's basically just, hey, I'll take the yards. I'll get the yards myself. And he tucks it and runs it. I think that there is a version of this game where if Texas comes out flat, like the ASU is going to jump up on them. And like Texas has the talent to not actually ever be out of any football game. But I do think that they are just much deeper. Like we talk about the athletic profiles of a lot of these teams, and we've seen it with the transfer portal, how it's taken away from how much deeper these teams are at the top than everybody else. But let's not make any mistake about it. They're still really deep. Like Ohio State, for as much as I make fun of them all year long, that's a deep football team. And so is Oregon. And so is Georgia. And we'll see if Gunnar Stockton is actually up to what the standard is going to have to be for them to beat Notre Dame. Because, man, Notre Dame, what they did to Indiana was just filthy. Indiana didn't want to die They made the last 2 minutes of that game the most dramatic last 2 minutes of a football game I've seen in a very, very long time. But that Notre Dame defense is going to go hunting for the lack of experience that they're going up against a quarterback. And I think that they're going to find some success doing it. Because like a lot of these teams are just insanely deep. And I think that that's where Texas ends up beating ASU. If in fact they end up beating ASU, is just depth.
I understand that with Arizona State, you are a beneficiary of this system of automatic buys, but there is a conversation that could be had around adjusting how that part works, because I think the automatic buy situation is actually what kind of crafted this inequality in the bracket of like where the talent got skewed. Mm-hmm. Because like if you think about last season, Florida State goes undefeated. Jordan Travis is lost in their final game. They know for a fact he's not going to be able to compete in the CFP. And then they get left out because of it. And in hindsight, it appeared to be justified. They weren't very competitive without him. But then you've got a sort of similar situation in Georgia to where it wasn't necessarily public knowledge that Carson Beck was going to be unavailable for the CFP, but there was doubt. You knew coming off of that game, there was big cloud hanging over that program in terms of whether or not their quarterback was going to be able to go. And because they won their conference championship, they couldn't be considered for anything lower than a 4 seed. And, being the SEC champ, they're not going to be the 4th place team. They got to come in as the number 2, and they got to do it kind of under the uncertainty of whether or not their quarterback would be available. But if you imagine this system without the automatic buys, yes, that would probably mean ASU does not get in as the 4. I think they still get in general.
They do, but they wouldn't have gotten in as the 4. And now you end up with probably maybe ASU and Clemson, which would have been a very fun game to watch.
Sure.
I think that would have been a better matchup.
Then, the committee could have looked at Georgia and could have maybe weighted that a little bit better and said, hey, you know what? We don't know what the future of your quarterback is right now. And while you're in this dynamic, you don't deserve a 2 seed. Because if there is a chance that your quarterback is not playing, you guys are not going to be the kind of team that you were all year. Therefore, we got to bump you down to the 4, or something like that.
And feeling like you have to be beholden to a school like SMU, even where it's just like, man, we know how you got here. We know how you got here. It was scheduling happened, and it's not their fault. Like the way that the ACC has their conference schedule structured, they should probably do something about that, because there always is a team that's going to have the quote unquote weak schedule. You're going to play the portion of the ACC that just isn't quite as strong as the rest of it. We saw it with SMU this year, getting to a conference title game. And we saw it the year before with Louisville. They came out of nowhere. And part of that was they got that schedule. And look, they won the games in front of them. Good for them. But were they one of the 12 best teams in the country?
Well, look at Indiana too. Indiana, the bulk of their in-conference schedule, they were playing the 5th best team, the 6th best team, the 7th best team, the 8th best team.
Yeah, and that's again, I don't blame those players. It's not their fault. But the fact is, that's unusual for Indiana to have a 10-win season, and they got a little bit of help with the schedule. That's just the way that it shakes out. You're not, you don't get to control that, but that's what the point of a committee is for, to sit there and actually use your brain, your mind, your common sense and reason, and go, you had a good year, but you're not contender good. And perhaps maybe there is no other team other than SMU you could have had there. And maybe just 12 teams is too many teams. That's also possible. And I do agree with Hamilton Porter. 8 seemed fine. I thought when they were expanding it from 4, I thought they should go to 6. Just get 2 teams a bye week. You got a first round with 2 teams playing.
You know where this is going though, too, right? Because I don't think it's going to be that crazy to say, one day it's probably going to go to 16.
They've already talked about it.
Yeah.
They've already talked about it. This is not, you're not crazy. This is something that they have had in the works for a while. They want a playoff that gives them the college football version of what the NCAA tournament is for basketball. But I just don't think football works like that. It just is a different sport, especially at the college level. It's so drastically different from basketball. You can't even compare the two. And I just think that this is not headed to a particularly great place because we're going to have more teams that have no business competing for a title, and I just do not enjoy that aspect of it because it makes it all about the playoff and less about the regular season. Because why should I care if I am BYU and I lose to Kansas if there are 16 spots available and I can get in? That to me is just,
you have to keep the urgency behind the regular season games.
Yeah, it's what makes it different from the NFL. The NFL is just a different beast entirely. I like the NFL, but it just does a different thing. And they're trying to make this also the NFL. And I think that that's basically doomed to fail unless we end up with some kind of super conference, and at which point then you'll have a handful of teams that are competing against the other handful of teams. Because the problem with what we've got with the playoff right now is that we have to ask these giant what ifs, and we have no real way of determining it until some team shows up and gets smoked by another team. How good is Boise State really? Like, good, but national champion contending good?
I mean, if we get these next 4 bowl games, I mean, if these are great games, if this is like entertaining and, they're 1-score games, I don't think you're going to see CFP make any changes, and they're going to feel pretty validated. But you get another round of like very one-sided, all the favorites covering the spread. I mean, at that point, there's probably going to be some conversations about how to, maybe just kind of manipulate some of the seeding rules a little bit to make a more favorable, more exciting bracket. And honestly, I would be for that conversation if that's the way this goes. But I really do think this next round of games, now we're going to see this more even kind of tiers of talent going up against each other. Yes, I'm still talking about ASU and Texas. I think you're going to see a more competitive game there. I think you're going to see it across the board. And
we'll see if Boise State is as worthy as, I hope they are. Like, I hope that there's not like,
I'd love to see them beat Penn State.
A massive gap, but like there also just is a good chance that Boise State shows up and Penn State contains Ashton Genty and they just get skunked, and that's the end of the day. So I hope that's not what occurs. And I hope that the Georgia game, doesn't turn into something ugly either. Without Carson Beck, that has a potential to go, quite frankly, either way.
If I'm Florida State, I am like raising hell. I mean, there's not like a whole lot to be done there because it's really just this automatic bye rule. But for your school to get judged for not having its quarterback available, and for that school to not get judged.
Well, and the thing is, it's afterwards. Like, Carson Beck was considered healthy until this point. I don't think that, I don't think that Georgia was being intentionally dishonest, because like, why wait until now?
No, I mean, it happened during the game, but like there has to be some allowance for the CFP to be able to judge that team the way that,
I would hate that, because we've already played around. So now you're going to retroactively kick a team out to get another team in, like that. I think
they set the precedent for that already.
Well, they did it though. They did, because that was before the games were played. But
the precedent in the decision making. I'm not saying the literal like maneuvers, but I think like
once you set it, I think you don't touch it. I don't think you can. That's not fair. You've already gone through a whole process where you've seeded everybody. Texas just already played Clemson. Penn State already beat SMU. And now you get to kick out Georgia? Well, if Georgia was going to be kicked out, why didn't we just get a bid? You know what I mean? Like, I think that right now you're just like, no. Like, if you're Florida State, you just got unlucky. Jordan Travis got hurt beforehand. If they had said it and then he got hurt after that, you'd already be in. I don't know what to tell you. And also, like, the team that got in ahead of you was just Texas. Like, it's not like they stopped Florida State for Boise. They stopped Florida State for Texas, who was also good and had the same record. They just lost their title game. I don't know. It's not quite apples to apples, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not. But that's where, if Notre Dame ends up just steamrolling Georgia over this, I just have to imagine that there's going to be some conversations about maybe we just get rid of this automatic buys thing.
Yeah, I think you have to. Honestly, I think that of all the things that has to go, that has to go. There, without question. All right, we're up against it, and we're running out of show. We've got Monday Night Football coming up tonight. Saints Packers. We're going to talk about how you can bet that to make it a little bit more interesting for yourself, because I assure you the game will not be interesting for you. You're listening to the Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
We all know just because gifts for loved ones can look like flowers, a spa day, or maybe even planning date night. But what about something that will truly last and protect your loved ones along the way? I'm talking about life insurance. I called SelectQuote to secure our coverage and couldn't believe how easy and affordable it was. I'm 40, and my $500,000 policy was only $16 a month. My husband's also 40, and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. And with their same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. With monthly payments less than the cost of a bouquet of flowers, this is the perfect time to make sure your family is protected.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-596-2626 or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-596-2626. 1-800-596-2626.
Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Don't miss the incredible last-minute deals at Target this week. With up to 50% off toys and great savings on clothing, tech, small appliances, floor care, and more, you can still save in the final days of the season. Plus, unlock more savings when you join Target Circle for free and enjoy exclusive deals with just one magical scan. But hurry before these last-minute deals vanish. Save more on gifts this season. Happier holidays from Target. Restrictions apply.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at tryethos.com. That's tryethos.com.
Hi, guys. Jeffrey O'Brien here. Have you ever gone to HarmonSolar.com? Well, you really need to, because everything you ever wanted to know about how solar power can save you big on your monthly electric bill is right there. It's online. Through your phone or through your computer, you can learn about tax credits, the equipment they use, look at how they do things for businesses as well as homeowners, see testimonials from happy customers, and I hear they got a pretty good podcast, too. Check it out. Go to HarmonSolar.com. That's HarmonSolar.com.
Think you can handle a few drinks and still drive safely? Think again. Buzzed driving is drunk driving, and drunk driving can land you in serious trouble. In Arizona, there's zero tolerance for impaired driving. Even one drink can cost you thousands in fines and legal fees. Plus, take away your driver's license. So plan ahead. Use a designated driver or rideshare. Get the facts at drivesober.az.gov. This message is sponsored by the Governor's Office of Highway Safety.
Oh, we're coming up to the end of the show here. And so without any, or I guess much further ado, what I'm going to do here is do on this date in Big Georgia sports history. And then we'll get to tonight's game. I don't want to make George mad, and he hasn't texted in a little bit, so I assume he's not listening, but I don't want to find out. I don't want to get there. So let's get to on this date in Big Georgia's sports history. I can go ahead and pull this up today. Let's see here. Back in the year 2004, the Atlanta Falcons handed Pro Bowl quarterback Michael Vick a 10-year, $130 million contract, the richest deal in NFL history. Vick, who was the #1 pick in the 2001 draft and transformed the previously lowly Falcons into an NFC South contender, not only was he 24-12-1 as a starter, he had single-handedly managed to fill the stands in Atlanta, something that hadn't been done in quite a while. The legitimacy of the deal was questioned almost immediately. Vick was not a precise passer as Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, and now that he was richer than either of them, fans expected him to take the next step. Instead, the Falcons missed the playoffs the following 2 seasons, leading many to question if Vick would ever evolve as a quarterback. And as it turns out, Atlanta only had to pay for 2 of the 10 years of his contract in 2007. Oh, my God. I think we went a little long in the last.
Jeez, yeah. Hey, at least you got it in, man.
Yeah. This is the longest on this date in Big Georgia sports history ever. All right, quick. What's your best bet for Saints Packers?
Spencer Rattler under passing yards. Last time I saw that line, it was 185.5. This is going to be a cold, frozen tundra game for Spencer Rattler. He is from Phoenix, and he spent this week preparing for this game in the Saints cafeteria freezer walk-in. That does not spell very good, prospects for Rattler to get a lot of passing yards. So you can take his under.
There you go. Spencer Rattler under. And in fact, maybe a lot of Saints offensive unders. You can figure it out. Daily Blender right here on 1580 The Fanatic. We'll see you all Thursday.
Gil Alexander